Chapter 1, Part 1. Asgard, the most powerful kingdom among the 9 realms, not only has powerful force, but also has top-notch magic and technology. Since the second king, King Bor, led the army of Asgard and prevented the plot of the Dark Elves from encroaching on the 9 realms, the 9 realms have been faintly headed by Asgard. After the third king Odin fought with his daughter Hela, the dominance of Asgard in the 9 realms was finally established. The 9 realms thus ushered in a long-lost period of peace. Until a few years ago, the Frost Titan ignored the majesty of the god King Odin and invaded the earth with troops, and the peace was ended again. Fortunately, although this war broke out suddenly, it ended quickly. The long period of peace did not weaken Odin's combat effectiveness. Although in the battle with Lauf, the Frost Titan king, he lost a right eye. However, relying on the tyrannical artifact Gungnir and the bravery of the Asgard warriors, Odin led his warriors to push all the way, directly hitting Jotunheim, the lair of the Frost Titan. In the end, the Frost Titan, who was beaten to the ground, had to agree to the peace treaty proposed by Odin. At the same time, as the defeated party, the Frost Titan also lost its artifact, Casket of Ancient Winters. Also on this day, as if to congratulate the victory of this war, God sent a prince to Asgard. Odin named the second prince of Asgard, Loki Odinson. Damn it, Loki, you're playing tricks on me again. This is already the 100th time. This time I will never let you go. As soon as the words fell, the little boy with long gold hair who looked about 7 or 8 years old stretched out his immature little hand in the direction of the Asgard palace. But in an instant, a small black spot appeared in the sky towards the palace, and then the black spot got closer and closer until it flew into the outstretched left hand of the blond boy. It wasn't until this time that this black spot revealed its true face, and it was the Asgard artifact that represented power and inheritance, Mjolnir. And the identity of the blond boy who can control it as he likes is ready to be revealed. He is the great prince of Asgard, Thor Odinson with the power of thunder. Seeing the appearance of the artifact Mjolnir, the expression of the boy with black hair and pale skin in front of Thor changed instantly. Immediately, he turned around and ran towards the bedroom of the god Empress Frigg. Brother, this is not the first time you have been pranked by me. As for making such a big move, even Mjolnir has used it. The dark-haired boy, who is also Thor's younger brother Loki, shouted with a wry smile as he went wild. As for what? You take this what back to me. It was fine if Loki didn't speak, but Thor became even more angry when he spoke. He grabbed the sling on the handle of Mjolnir's hammer and began to swing it wildly, creating a strong cyclone around him. You know that I like snakes, but you turned into a snake to lie to me. After cheating, you stabbed me in the stomach again. Loki, let me tell you, today I must let you know why flowers are so red. At the moment, Mjolnir in Thor's hand had spun as fast as he could handle. You know, Mjolnir was built by the Dwarf King who extracted a fixed star core that was about to be destroyed as a raw material. At such a speed, even if Mjolnir scratched a little bit, anything would still suffer horrific damage. But Thor, who was in a rage, had no reason to think about these anymore. He stared at the direction of Loki's escape, and the sling in his hand suddenly loosened. Mjolnir, who lost control, shot towards Loki with lightning speed. If this blow is strong, with Loki's small body playing magic, he will definitely be seriously injured if he doesn't die. If you just end up with a permanent disability in the end, it can be said to be lucky. But at this extremely dangerous moment, Loki had an inappropriate look of surprise on his face. A ding, it is detected that the host has completed 100 pranks according to the system requirements. Congratulations to the host for completing the task, and the reward Skillming Jing Ji Shui. It is detected that this task is a novice task, and special rewards for novice benefits, 100% initial skill proficiency. The new mission has been issued. You can enter the mission module to view the mission details. Please the host make persistent efforts to complete the task as soon as possible and obtain system rewards. There was a sound that only Loki could hear, and then Loki felt a huge wave of memory melt into his brain and every muscle in his body. The moment before Mjolnir's hammerhead was about to hit his body, Loki instinctively used the new ability he had just obtained from the system, the magic mirror. Then Loki's whole body seemed to rise in a black mist that was barely noticeable to the naked eye, and his whole body turned into a phantom in an instant. Mjolnir, who was attacking head-on, seemed to have turned into a stone falling into the lake at this moment, passing through the reflection cast by Loki on the lake. In the end, there were only ripples on the lake as calm as a mirror, and Thor, who saw that he missed a hit, finally came back to his senses at the moment, only feeling a moment of fear in his heart, and quickly called Mjolnir back into his hand. If the all-powerful blow he had just received from rage really hit Loki, then he would definitely regret it for the rest of his life. Obviously he was the one being teased, but Thor at the moment had the idea of apologizing to Loki. But Loki didn't know what was going on in his heart, and he didn't dare to stay in front of Thor any longer. As the phantom left by the mirror image dissipated, Loki's figure also disappeared from Thor's sight. Inside the palace, wisps of black mist suddenly appeared in a room and finally gathered into a figure. It was Loki, who had just returned from running in front of Thor. Phew. Today is really thrilling. If it weren't for the 100th mission, the system would have to stab Thor to complete the mission. How could Common's prank make Thor angry? Fortunately, the rewards for the system tasks were distributed quickly enough. Otherwise, I might really have to hand over to Thor today. However, the greater the risk, the greater the reward. The skill of Mirror Flower and Water Moon is really a perfect match for me, the god of mischief. Looking at the skill introduction on his system panel, Loki couldn't help sighing. Skill: Flower in Mirror and Moon in Water. Proficiency: 100% AE skill introduction. It comes from the trick of the Slick Ghost, the master of the Night Walk of 100 Ghosts. When the skills are activated, you can turn yourself into a flower reflected in the mirror, a moon floating in the water. While completely hiding yourself, you can disable the enemy's attack on you. Chapter 2, Part 1. With the skill of Flower in Mirror and Moon in Water, as long as I have enough magic power, basically no one can cause harm to me. It can be called a divine skill. Combined with the phantom magic and invisibility magic given to me by my mother, even if the system issues some death missions to me in the future, at least I don't have to worry about my own safety anymore. When I think of the future when the enemy faces me, the enemy will frantically attack the illusion I created, wasting my strength in vain. But I turned on the mirror, and then hid in the dark, so I was invincible. The smile on Loki's face could no longer be contained. After the excitement, Loki remembered that a new mission had been updated in the mission module of the system. Hastily exited the skill introduction interface and entered the task module. And then, he saw a task that left him speechless. No way, system? Are you going to play me to death? If I follow your quest requirements, maybe my father will really pull out his gunner gun and kill me. Because the task module of the system wrote impressively. Task 2. Ask the host to sneak into Odin's treasury to steal the casket of ancient winters, and use it to freeze Thor Odinson into a popsicle. After the task is completed, you will receive a generous reward from the system. In an instant, Loki's joy of obtaining the magic skill of Mirror Flower and Water Moon just now disappeared. A pair of big Kazairan eyes, staring blankly at the character introduction on the system interface that only he can see, Loki only feels that his future is gloomy. The amount is wrong. The amount is really wrong. I shouldn't have crossed over from the beginning, and if I didn't, I wouldn't be reborn on Loki. If I hadn't been reborn into Loki, I wouldn't have ended up in such a sad place. If you don't fall into such a sad place, you don't have to be angry with the system. That's right. The reason why this Loki has a gold finger called Myriad Realms skill system, which should not have existed in the first place. There is only one truth. That is Loki in this universe, a time traveler and legendary. As a common otaku in his previous life, he spent a lot of effort to download the 4K source of Thor 4. Full of expectations, but was fed by the director to rely on the defense. Just when he was about to yell and rant at the director, he inexplicably traveled to this Marvel universe whose number was unknown. And also reborn as the baby Loki who Odin had just brought back from Jotunheim to Asgard. In the end, what happened? How did he cross over? And also regenerated Loki, the famous villain in the Marvel universe. The sudden change made Loki dumbfounded. Fortunately, he has become a baby again, and now he has a lot of time to think about life. Day after day, under the careful care of Odin's wife, God Queen Frigga, the 1-year-old Loki finally figured out everything and was ready to start his life again in this world. Now that he was reborn as Loki, he knew clearly from the Marvel movies in his previous life how miserable his end would be if he followed the original way of dying. Then as long as he doesn't get involved in the throne of Asgard, he should help his elder brother well, or even be a happy prince honestly. As the second prince of Asgard, wouldn't this life be much happier and happier? But just when Loki finally made up his mind to be a human again, that evil skill system suddenly popped out of his mind. Constantly use the divine grade skills in its skill library to trick Loki into completing system tasks. If Loki's will is enough to identify, that's all. After all, this system does not have the ability in other novels that can threaten the life of the host at every turn. Even because the system is completely bound to Loki, once there is any problem with Loki's life, the system cannot escape the fate of disappearing. But where is Loki reborn? This is the Marvel universe. Even if Loki is willing to stay in Asgard, just be a second prince who eats and waits to die. But don't forget, there is also his crazy big sister who is not related by blood in this world, Hela, the goddess of death. There is also Thanos, who is also known as the Universal Family Planning Commission, who loves to snap his fingers. These two guys, even if Loki doesn't take the initiative, have always been a serious threat to his life. Who knows if Hela will let him go because he was adopted when he comes back for revenge? Or could he be that lucky and escape the 50% chance of annihilation with Thanos' snap of his fingers? He didn't dare to put his life in the hands of others. If he wants to live in this world with dignity and freedom, Loki must have enough strength. If Loki follows the original growth path in the previous life movie, he learns magic from Frigga, the number one witch in the Nine Realms. Even though he has already excelled in magic attainments, when faced with a powerhouse like Thanos, he still can only wag his tail and beg for mercy. If you want to change your fate against the sky and get rid of the original shackles, you have to hang up. So, even though the task issued by the system was very deadly, Loki finally accepted this task, to trick Thor 100 times, and at the 100th time, the special conditions arranged by the system must be fulfilled to pass the task. So, after Loki was able to leave his mother's arms and start walking, he played crazy pranks against Thor for 3 days and 1 whole, 5 days and 1 whole. For this reason, Loki gained a notorious reputation as a god of mischief in Asgard. But as Thor grew up and began to learn how to become an Asgard warrior, it is becoming more and more difficult for Loki to successfully complete a prank, which also leads to Loki needing to prepare and lay the groundwork for a long time in advance in order to complete a successful prank. In many cases, not only did he need to use all kinds of advanced magic learned from Frigg, but he even had to use all kinds of psychological knowledge from his previous life memory. It can be said that in order to complete these 100 tricks and get rewards from the system, Loki racked his brains. Although tricking Thor, he himself really enjoyed it. After several years of hard work, Loki finally completed the first task released by the system before his 8th birthday, and successfully got the task reward. And the task rewards he got did not disappoint Loki. It could even be said to have far exceeded his original expectations. If it continues at this pace, even every character released by the system will take several years to complete. Loki is also confident that after more than 1,000 years, his strength will definitely grow to a very terrifying level. Chapter 3, Part 1. However, just after obtaining the life-saving skill of Mirror Flower and Watermoon, the system allowed him to sneak into Odin's treasure house and steal the casket of ancient winters. What's even more outrageous is that Thor will be frozen into a popsicle with the stolen casket of ancient winters. Compared with the previous task of tricking Thor 100 times, isn't the difficulty increasing a little too quickly? You know, the Odin treasury is not like a museum, where you can enter at will. It not only collects various valuable trophies of Asgard when Odin fought in the 9 realms. At the same time, it also keeps many dangerous artifacts with devastating power. The casket of ancient winters, which is required to be stolen in the system task, is such a thing that holds thousands of deadly winter artifacts. Once turned on, the icy and violent blizzard will completely freeze everything it touches. In addition, the most famous shadow should be the tesseract that has not yet been hidden on the earth. It is conceivable how closely guarded Odin's treasury will be. It can be said to be extremely difficult to enter and steal any treasure. However, for Loki, who has mastered the invisibility magic and can completely hide his aura through the mirror, entering the Odin treasure house is not the most difficult part of this task. As for freezing Thor into a popsicle, it's even simpler. For Loki, who has tricked Thor 100 times, there will be no psychological burden at all. The fundamental reason why Loki is so resistant to this task is that the ice crate originally belonged to the artifact of the Frost Titan Lauf, the king of Jotunheim. And he, Loki Odinson, the second prince of Asgard who was adopted by Odin, his real name should actually be Loki Laufson. That is to say, he is actually Lauf's biological son. Except for Odin and Frigga, no one in Asgard knows about this matter. Even Loki himself knew this truth early because of the memory of his previous life. Definitely, he has no feelings for Lauf, his biological father. The reason why he became the adopted son of Odin is because he is the blood of Lauf, the king of Frost Titan, but he is not as tall and strong as other Frost Titans. Therefore, as soon as she was born, she was abandoned by Lauf in the deepest part of the Jotunheim palace. If it weren't for the war between Jotunheim and Asgard, Odin led his troops to the palace of Lauf and found Loki. He's already merged with Jotunheim's frozen ice for who knows how many years. In addition, as a reborn person, he is born with mature thoughts. Loki is very clear about the truth of becoming kind is worse than raising kindness. But Loki's embarrassment is precisely because of this. Sneaking into Odin's treasury to steal things will make Odin angry or secondary. Although being spanked by Gunnel does hurt, what Loki is most worried about is whether his act of stealing the casket of ancient winters will make Odin suspect that he has learned the identity of his Frost Titan. As a result, the family relationship cultivated in the past 8 years has cracked. Because people with the blood of the Frost Titan will reveal their true skin color once they touch the casket of ancient winters, which even Odin's magic cannot change. Therefore, once he decides to accept this task, Loki must formulate a strict action plan to ensure that this matter will not be discovered by Odin or Frigg. System, can you tell me what reward you will get after completing this task? Your task is so risky. If the things are not strong enough, I'm willing to take the risk. Host, please rest assured, the rewards prepared by the system for you will definitely surprise you, and they match you very well. If you give up the mission and miss the reward of this mission, you, the host, will definitely regret it in the future. After listening to the system's speech while holding the pipa and half covering his face, Loki's heart that had just calmed down became eager to move again. As long as they can complete this task without anyone noticing, not only will they be able to get generous system rewards, but it will not affect the relationship between their families. Moreover, the entire task process, including the planning and preparation time in the early stage, will not exceed 1 month. This is much faster than the first Trick Thor 100 times mission. Do you want to gamble on this one? Undecided Loki, after thinking for a long time in the room, finally decided to accept this task. If the reward for the first mission wasn't the ability of Mirror Flower and Watermoon, perhaps Loki would give up this mission without hesitation. However, the effect of the flower in the mirror and the moon in the water can completely hide its own breath, giving Loki confidence that he can sneak out of the cold winter without being discovered by anyone. Then after the task is completed, put it back intact. The only flaw in the whole thing is the task condition of freezing Thor into a popsicle. If Thor speaks out about this, Loki's plan will naturally fall by the wayside. However, after 8 years of getting along day and night, Loki has a very good understanding of Thor's character. Thor is not a child who goes back to complain to his parents after being wronged. What's more, as the eldest brother, he has always been very tolerant of his younger brother. In this way, I have to wait patiently for a while, and wait until Thor's anger at being tricked by me today completely dissipates before continuing this mission. And while freezing Thor, don't let him see the casket of ancient winters I'm holding in my hand. As long as Thor doesn't complain to his father and queen, even if he complains to Fandral, Hogun, and Vostag later, they will only think that I used freezing magic to play a prank on Thor. After planning all this, Loki went to Frigg's magic class every day as usual. After class, I went to the library to read books. Try not to be in front of Thor and remind him of a bad memory. On the other hand, Thor was also embarrassed to meet Loki because he couldn't control his emotions and almost missed and seriously injured Loki. But Thor originally is a nervous, carefree character. In just a few days, this bit of regret and shame was forgotten by him. Instead, it was because he found out that Loki hadn't been messing with him, and it always felt like something was wrong. I don't know if he was tricked by Loki too many times and suffered from Stockholm Syndrome. Oh right. At this time, there is no such place as Stockholm on Earth, and I don't know what to call this mental state. It doesn't matter what it's called, because Thor's state gives Loki a good chance to complete the task. Loki decided to take action tonight, stealing the casket of ancient winters while Thor was asleep, and then freezing Thor. By the time Thor wakes up the next day, the ice should have almost melted. With Thor's thick lines, maybe he won't even find out that he's been frozen. Chapter 4, Part 1. This is the first time Loki has entered the Vault of Odin. As expected, under the concealment effect of the mirror, the guards at the door couldn't find him at all. Loki easily entered the curry side. However, when he came to the treasure house, the first treasure that caught Loki's eyes was not the casket of ancient winters he was looking for, but the eternal fire, which was burning with blazing fire and released the high temperature that made him extremely uncomfortable. He heard from his mother, Frigga, that when Odin was fighting in the Nine Realms, he took away this artifact that originally belonged to the Flame Titan Surti and kept it in his treasury for safekeeping. Because once the Flame Titan touches the eternal fire, it will become as huge as a mountain, and without his opponent, Asgard will also be in danger. But in the memory of his previous life, Surti still took back the eternal fire in the future and destroyed Asgard. I don't know this time, after the variable of me appears, will the future Asgard welcome the so-called Ragnarok? Loki unconsciously walked away from the location where the eternal fire was, and at the same time couldn't help thinking. Immediately afterwards, his gaze was attracted by the second artifact in the treasure house. Although this was the first time he had really seen this treasure, he was no stranger to it. Tesseract, this may be the most precious artifact in Odin's treasury, because the core of Tesseract is the space gem, one of the 6 infinite gems. This is why Tesseract can realize the transmission of any space in the universe and has endless energy. The reason why Loki is no stranger to him is also because according to the plot and memory, he has a great fate with it. Looking away again, Loki has not forgotten his purpose of sneaking here in the middle of the night. After a careful search, I finally found the slightly dim casket of ancient winters in a corner of this huge treasure house. But when he put his hands on the exquisitely carved handle of the casket of ancient winters, the originally dim casket of ancient winters immediately emitted a dazzling blue light. At the same time, Loki's appearance, which was no different from other Asgardians under Odin's magic, changed rapidly. If Loki at the moment could see himself, he would have turned into a frost titan with blue skin and red eyes. Although his size has nothing to do with the word titan, Loki wasn't surprised in any way. He'd known this was going to happen. Quickly resorting to magic tricks to cover himself in the aura of the casket of ancient winters, Loki quietly left Odin's vault again, and then sneaked into Thor's room. At the moment, Thor has fallen into a deep sleep, holding his beloved Meow hammer. It can be seen from the corners of his mouth that he is constantly going up he is experiencing a sweet dream. But I'm sorry, big brother, in order to complete the task of the system, I have to splash a basin of cold water on your beauty. If you want to blame you, you can only blame that despicable system, which is separating the pure and flawless friendship between us brothers. Although he said so on his mouth, there was no trace of hesitation in the movements of Loki's hands. Controlling the magic in the body, carefully inputted into the casket of ancient winters. In an instant, an extremely cold air gushed out of it, freezing Thor solidly into a popsicle. However, Loki uses very little magic, and it is estimated that he can freeze Thor for several hours. Just after successfully freezing Thor into a popsicle, the system also heard a notification that the task was completed. When he heard what the reward for this mission was, Loki was so excited that he almost lost control of his magic. Fortunately, when learning magic with Frigga, he usually practiced manipulating magic power. Otherwise, Thor might have been frozen into a real popsicle just because of his shivering. Calming his excitement, Loki carefully returned the casket of ancient winters to Odin's vault. After returning to his room, he couldn't wait to open the system interface and began to carefully read the system introduction of the new skill. Skill: Devil Fruit, Frozen Power E Change, Proficiency, 0%, Skill Introduction. A natural devil fruit from former Admiral Kuzan. After the transformation of the system skills, the curse of the sea originally carried by the devil fruit was eliminated, and the ability to activate the ability was changed from consuming stamina to activating the ability by consuming mana. After the skill is turned on, any part of the body can be turned into ice, immune to physical attacks and most energy attacks. You can also release freezing gas to freeze all substances into ice, or use freezing gas to make weapons and create any type of weapon to attack the target. P.S. Although this world is not domineering, don't underestimate the power of technology and magic just because it can be turned into elements. After confirming that the frozen fruit rewarded by the system was indeed the frozen fruit in his memory, Loki had thousands of words in his heart, but finally he said, "Damn. It smells so good, system. E_?" Sure enough, no matter where this person is, he can't escape the slap in the face of the law of Zhenxiang in the end. System, you're really a heifer chasing a bull. You're so awesome. Not only did you get out the ability of the devil fruit, but you even eliminated the original weakness of the devil fruit. Hey, if you have any tasks in the future, just give orders to Master System. Even if I, Loki, go up the mountain of swords and into the sea of fire, I must definitely complete it. We can't blame Loki's bottom line for being too flexible. It's because the system gives too much. Just like what the system said before, the mission rewards this time really fit Loki very well. With the blood of Frost Titan, he was born with the ability to gain strength from the cold. It's just that Loki is a stunted xenomorph, and his ability in this aspect has been suppressed since birth. But now the appearance of the frozen fruit ability seems to have directly opened up his two veins of Ran and Dew and reactivated Loki's ability, which has never been brought into play. Coupled with the ability of frozen fruits to elementalize and create frozen air. As long as Loki has enough magic power in his body, he can use frozen fruits to constantly enhance his own strength. And the improvement of one's own strength will in turn increase one's upper limit of magic power, thus achieving a positive cycle. As for the system prompt, telling him to be careful that technology and magic can cause damage to him after elementalization, Loki is not worried at all. But don't forget, in addition to the ability of frozen fruit, he also obtained the magical skill of mirroring flowers and water moons from the system before this. If this can make people squeak, what kind of waste is he, Loki? However, it is still too early to be happy. This time, there is no extra reward for novices in this mission, and the skill proficiency is still at 0%. If you want to become stronger as soon as possible, you still have to improve the skill proficiency of the power of freezing as soon as possible. There is a long way to go. Chapter 5, Part 1. Midgard, Sardinia. Looking down on the calm sea from a high altitude, a white line abruptly divides the sea into two. Above the white line, a small black dot is slowly approaching the coast. Only after getting closer can I see clearly that it is not a white line at all, but an ice road frozen on the sea. The little black that keeps approaching the coast is actually Loki on a bicycle. Definitely, at this point in time, Midgard hadn't invented the bicycle yet. The bike that Loki is riding is a limited edition made of ice blocks based on the memory of his previous life, using the power of freezing. After a while, he had already returned to the seaside along the ice road he had frozen out. There is a deck chair and a table on the beach, also constructed entirely of ice. Loki was on the golden sand, looking at the blue sea in the distance, feeling the gentle sea breeze brushing against his cheeks. It was rare to enjoy such a pleasant time. He picked up a sterling silver jug and wine glass from the table on the beach and poured himself a glass of wine. As soon as the wine glass arrived in the hand, it was covered with a thin layer of frost, which turned the wine at room temperature into a frozen drink. But judging from the expression on Loki's face, the taste of this cold drink obviously didn't satisfy him. After more than 10 years of hard training, Loki has already raised his proficiency in freezing power to 100%. The moves created by Kazan and Aquaman, at the moment, are all mastered by Loki. The reason why Loki at the moment will appear in Midgard is actually sent through Bifrost with Odin and Thor. Over the years, in order to continuously improve his own strength, Loki is either familiar with the use of freezing power or learning magic with Frigg. In a trance, Loki has the feeling of dreaming back to his previous life and preparing for the college entrance examination. But this time, just hearing that Odin and Thor are going to Midgard to complete a task, Loki thought of taking this opportunity to go together. After all, Midgard was also his home planet in his previous life. Although time and space are different, Loki still wants to come back and take a look, and also take a vacation for himself to relax. The bottle of wine he drank just now was stolen from the house of the Lord of Sardinia in this era. No, it should be said that the Lord of Sardinia dedicated it to his god. With the brewing technology of this era, the taste is naturally not much better. As for Thor, he went with Odin to complete the mission of their trip. The purpose of their coming to Midgard this time is to transfer the Tesseract originally stored in Odin's treasure house to Tunsberg in Midgard and hide it. By accident, Odin discovered records about Tesseract and infinite gems in an ancient book in Asgard. After learning about the preciousness of this artifact and the dangers it may pose if it falls into the wrong hands, Odin decided to hide it on Midgard. Because Midgard is the weakest country in the Nine Realms, even Heimdall, who supervises the Nine Realms, will not pay special attention to this inconspicuous planet. However, Odin probably would not have imagined that just over 1,000 years later, Midgard had developed a technology that could initially utilize Tesseract energy. The decision he thought was extremely appropriate has also become the constant bane of the Earth's catastrophe in the future. Although Loki has the advantage of being a traverser, he knows the future direction of Midgard. But he was not going to discourage Odin's plan. Whether he could persuade him was one, and the other was that he was here on vacation, so he didn't bother to make trouble for himself. I didn't see the Supreme Mage, a local, didn't express any opinions, and it was no way for Loki to meddle in his own business. Speaking of Supreme Mage, Loki really hopes to go to Kamartaj to exchange magic experience with him. Although the magic systems of Kamartaj and Asgard are very different, but no matter what, Supreme Mage is also a master of the same level of strength as Odin. If he can learn something from the opponent, it will definitely be of great benefit to Loki's own strength. However, Kamartaj in this era is much more closed than it was more than 1,000 years later. Even when Lauf led a group of Frost Titans to invade Midgard decades ago, the Supreme Mage never came forward to stop it. It is conceivable that Loki's idea of coming to communicate with each other is probably useless. Definitely, above-board door visits may be out of the question, but sneaky infiltrations are still possible. Loki has full confidence in his own illusion. After all, not even the well-guarded Odin treasury could stop him, so sneaking into Kamartaj would not be too difficult for him. After the vacation is over, let's go to Kamartaj. I remember that in Kamartaj's library, there are not only the Book of Visandi that records all the white magic, but also the black magic of various evil gods. I also have a lot of books. Even if the magic in it can't be used by me, it is after all the inheritance of those big magicians. As long as I can learn from some experience and ideas, my strength can be greatly improved. Speaking of which, the reason why Loki is so unscrupulous is that even if he sneaks in secretly, he still has to learn the magic of Kamartaj. The main reason is that his strength has not been improved for several years. As early as when Loki was 15 years old, he had already learned all the magic recorded in Asgard, and became the great demon mage who surpassed the Queen Frigg. The positive feedback formed by the power of freezing and the Frost Titan ability also lost its effect on enhancing physical fitness when Loki became an adult at the age of 18. In addition to the two skills obtained from the system, the proficiency has also reached 100%, and Loki's strength growth has entered a bottleneck period. Unless there is another adventure in the future, so that the strength can advance by leaps and bounds. Otherwise, Loki can only achieve further improvement in strength as he ages and accumulates over a long period of time. But since everyone said it was an adventure, how could it be so easy to meet? Unless you have the aura of the protagonist, or you are on the hook. Not to mention, Loki is indeed a cheater. But my own hanging is not very powerful. After Loki completed the second mission and acquired the ability of freezing power, the system also dutifully released the third mission soon. But even this third mission has passed for more than 10 years, and Loki has not completed it until now. There is no other reason. The difficulty of this task released by the system is 2F*** King High. Mission 3, Prince's Revenge. I waited 8 years for an opportunity. I want to fight, not to prove that I am great, but to tell everyone that I must get back what I have lost. Ask the host to avenge the Frost Titan King Lauf who abandoned him, and realize the rule of the Jotunheim Kingdom and become the real king. After the task is completed, you will get a super rich reward provided by the system. Chapter 6 Supreme Mage, Part 1. From the task description, the system deliberately used the word super in double quotation marks to highlight how arduous this task will be. Although Lauf's strength has declined significantly after losing the casket of ancient winters, but Loki's freezing power will also be greatly reduced in the face of Lauf, the Frost Titan. To avenge him, Loki must at least reach the level of Subgod Father. And even with Lauf defeated by Loki, the mission isn't over yet. He still needs to achieve the rule of Jotunheim and become the king of Jotunheim to complete the task. This condition is really a bit difficult for others. Ruling a country is not something that can be achieved only by strength. Not to mention that after the previous battle of Jotunheim, Lauf signed a peace treaty with Odin that lasted for 1,000 years. If Loki dares to attack Jotunheim before the peace treaty expires, he will definitely be beaten by Odin with Gungnir. Since the completion of the system's mission is still far away, Loki turned his attention to Kamartaj's magic. But what Loki didn't expect was that before he could put this idea into action, the victim of his plan would come to his door first. By the time Loki reacted, his whole body had been dragged into the mirror space. Faced with this unexpected situation, even Loki, who has always been calm, couldn't help but turn pale with shock. Because so far, he has not mastered any method to decipher space magic like mirror space. If the other party is determined to trap him in this space, Loki has no other countermeasures except waiting for Odin to rescue him. What makes Loki even more nervous is whether the other party has peeped into his future through the eye of Agamotto, the time gem, one of the 6 infinite gems. Because they spied him secretly sneaking into Kamartaj to read the magic book. So they acted preemptively and took him to the mirror space. Loki thought to himself, if there is still a chance to return to Asgard, I must ask Dwarf King Ai Chue to help me create an artifact that can use the power of space. Just when Loki was thinking wildly in his mind, the system's prompt sounded suddenly, making Loki's face darken again. A ding, it is detected that the host is about to face a major crisis. In order to protect the safety of the host, a side mission is hereby issued. Subquest 1. Ask the host to use his ingenuity to escape safely from the mirror space, and let the Supreme Mage agree to your request to read the Kamartaj magic book. After completing the task, the system will give the host a special reward. After reading the content of the side missions, Loki kept cursing the system in his heart as useless waste. Knowing the situation he is facing now, not only does he not provide him with any help, but also let him use his ingenuity to get out of trouble. Listen, is this something a system with a conscience can say? And it's fine if you don't help, this damn system is still here to make trouble. Let yourself speak to the Supreme Mage, and request to read the Kamartaj magic book. The system thinks he didn't die fast enough, right? But even so, the special reward mentioned by the system still made Loki want to give it a try. What if the Supreme Mage really got a headache, let me out of here, and allowed me to read Kamartaj's magic book? Anyway, no matter whether there are systematic tasks or not, I still have to find a way to leave. And with the mirror flower and the water moon by my side, even if the mission fails at worst, I will die alone in the mirror space. After father and elder brother found out that I was missing, they probably wouldn't ignore me. Thinking of this, Loki felt a little guilty. The adopted son is also a son. Many thoughts flashed through Loki's mind, but in reality, it all happened in an instant. In the next second, a spark appeared out of nowhere in the mirror space, and an old man wearing a yellow mage robe with beard and hair appeared in front of Loki. And Loki knew at the first sight of him that this is Kamartaj's contemporary Supreme Mage, because the magic weapon hanging on the opponent's chest is the sacred object guarded by Kamartaj's Supreme Mage in the past, Eye of Agamotto. The god of trickery in Asgard, Loki Odinson, has met his excellency Mage. Now that things can't be avoided, Loki's choice is definitely to be proactive. He directly explained his origin and identity, and the purpose was to hope that the opponent would fear the strength of Asgard and Odin, and then let him go. However, as soon as the other party spoke, Loki's eyes widened in surprise again. I know who you are, Loki. In fact, the reason I came to see you today is at the request of your father Odin. The other said. After the other party's narration, Loki also knew that the name of this Supreme Mage was Diesher. I came to him today because Odin saw that since he became the Big Devil Mage, he has been unhappy about the stagnation of his own strength in the past few years. So after placing the Tesseract in Tunsberg together with Thor, he took the initiative to find Diesher and offered to exchange 3 artifacts from Odin's treasure house in exchange for a chance so that Loki could enter Kamartaj to learn magic. And DC also agreed to the deal proposed by Odin, and came here today to explain the situation to Loki and bring him back to Kamartaj at the same time, because he was worried about the sudden appearance of a stranger like himself, which would cause Loki to react in a stressful way. That's why Loki was dragged into the mirror space in advance, so as not to affect the common people in Sardinia. After learning all this, Loki was both moved and happy. Naturally, he was moved because he did not expect that his father, who had always been stern and strict in front of himself and Thor, had actually been silently caring for him in his own way. And happy definitely because the imagined danger did not become a reality, but also got the opportunity to study in Kamar-Taj. Things turned around so quickly, it was really unpredictable for Loki. But before entering Kamar-Taj with Dyesha, Loki did not forget that he had one more thing to accomplish. Daisy Mage, I would like to ask, can I read the magic books in the Kamar-Taj library while learning magic with you? Upon hearing this, Dyesha showed a kind smile. It's definitely not a problem. Kamar-Taj's collection of books is open to everyone. It's just that some banned books are more dangerous. If you want to read them safely, you need to wait for the book collection. You need to be more mature. At the same time as Daishi's voice fell, the system's notification tone sounded again. It's over. It's over. This time I lost a lot. Hey, congratulations to the host for completing the task. The special rewards have been issued. This system will shut itself down for a while. You can check it yourself, the host. Chapter 7, Part 1. It was completely unexpected by the system that things would develop to this point. The riskier the task, the greater the reward upon completion. This is the standard that the system has always followed. Therefore, when issuing side missions to Loki, the system set the content of mission rewards for Loki according to the situation at the time. But the system didn't figure it out after thousands of calculations. Apart from his cheating, the host also had his father's very thick thighs. Odin directly slapped the 3 artifacts in front of Duresh, allowing Loki to complete the side mission with ease. At this point, the system can only do things according to its own operating rules and distribute the prepared rewards. Not to mention the self-closing system in the dark corner of Loki's mind. Loki at the moment in the real world is obediently following the supreme mage Dyesha. Although Loki is extremely ecstatic in his heart at the moment, he is even more curious about the special rewards issued by the system. But on the surface, he still maintains a calm state, for fear that the supreme mage will find out that there is something abnormal about him. The two passed through the portal and came to the square of Kamar-Taj. This is the place where mages usually teach and train magic. If you look up along the direction of the long steps, you can see the supreme mage holy place built on the top. There is the place where supreme mage lives and meets his disciples on weekdays. Duresh took Loki up the stairs, and only after entering the hall, Duresh said to Loki again, "In the next period of time, I will be your mentor and teach you the magic knowledge passed down from ancient times by Kamar-Taj. Although because of the conflict of the magic system, you can't use these magic like the other mage I taught. But I believe that with your magical ability and ingenuity, you will definitely be able to find what you need among these precious things and integrate them into your own magic. Afterwards, if you encounter any problems in your studies, you can come here and ask me. You just came here today. I will arrange for a disciple to lead you to settle the residence first, and then take you around to get acquainted with the environment. Tomorrow, you will officially start studying the magic class I arranged for you." After Dyesha finished speaking, he was about to call someone in to take Loki away, but was interrupted by Loki. "Wait a minute, Teacher Dyesha. I have a question for you right now." Although Darishi was a little surprised, he still stretched out his hand to signal Loki to continue talking. "Teacher, did you really agree to let me enter Kamar-Taj to learn magic because of the 3 artifacts my father took out?" While asking questions, Loki glanced at the eye of Agamotto on Duresh's chest from time to time. Seeing his appearance, Dyesha still doesn't know the answer that Loki really wants to know. Dyesha didn't hide anything and replied very directly, "Before agreeing to your father's conditions, I did use the power of the Eye of Agamotto to explore your future. Although it's really rude to do this, I can't help it. After all, compared with Asgard, Kamar-Taj's strength is still too weak. I have to make sure that the decisions I make at this point in time don't irreparably catastrophe the future of this planet." Hearing Taishi's confession, even Loki, who has always been very calm, couldn't help asking eagerly, "So, teacher, what did you see that you decided to agree to my father's condition and allow me to enter Kamar-Taj to learn magic?" Loki at the moment was very disturbed. On the one hand, he doesn't want someone who can peek into his future at will, because it means that in front of this person, all the plans of the god of tricks will be invalid. Unless you can be like Odin, have enough strength to ignore this kind of prediction, and even make your opponent dare not spy on it. On the other hand, Loki really wants to know whether his own destiny has been shifted in the future that Dyesha sees, or whether it is still following the movie plot in his memory without any change. "Actually, I didn't see anything. The Eye of Agamotto didn't show me your future in any timeline." Darishi shook his head and gave the answer Loki wanted. "Loki, do you know what that means? It means your future is full of possibilities. You have infinite possibilities. Even time magic can't see your fate clearly. You can be the most evil villain in the universe, or you can be the kindest hero in the universe. It is precisely because of this that I decided to agree to Odin's conditions and let you enter Kamar-Taj to learn magic. I hope that through my efforts, I can guide you to a path that is more beneficial to the entire world. It may be a bit conceited, but an old man like me prefers to think of it as a beautiful vision for the future." Hearing this, Loki nodded thoughtfully, then with a smile on his face, he looked at Duresh and said, "I think your vision will definitely come true in the future. Ha ha, I think so too. She laughed heartily. After coming out of the holy place of the supreme mage, Loki, under the leadership of a mage, first walked around the entire Kamartaj, getting familiar with the functions and locations of each building. During dinner, I also experienced the food conditions of mages in Kamartaj. I have to say that the diet of this era really has nothing to do with the word delicious. After dinner, having gotten acquainted with Kamartaj's plan for Loki, he returned to the room assigned to him alone. In fact, along the way, Loki couldn't wait to get back to the room. After all, it can almost be said to be a special reward from the system for free prostitution, but he has been patiently not opening it to check, and he still doesn't know what it is. Open the system interface proficiently, and you will see a red dot marked on the position of the system notification, and this red dot is still flashing. Loki clicked it open, and a blue gift box tied with a red ribbon and a bow immediately jumped out of his eyes. In the next second, the gift box exploded with a bang, and scattered fireworks instantly covered the entire system interface. And at this time, through the fragments of the fireworks, Loki finally saw the content of this special reward. Loki's pupil shrank, and his expression gradually changed from shock to excitement. It's no wonder that the dog system can shut itself down on the spot. This time, it's really at a loss, haha. Chapter 8, Part 1. Loki's wanton laughter echoed in the room, but fortunately it's not time for a break at this point. Otherwise Loki would definitely receive friendly greetings from the neighbors around him. But it's completely understandable for Loki to be so excited. After all, the system was indeed bleeding a lot this time, and the rewards given made Loki very satisfied. Skill, Ninja Illusion Exchange, Proficiency, 0%, Skill Introduction. From the world of the Eyes of Five Villages, Legendary. It contains 10 auxiliary ninjutsu that are not limited to blood successors. After the system transformation, the host can use its own magic power to launch illusions. Although in front of Sharingan, the illusions present here are all fun. But with the insidious and cunning of the host as the god of tricks, I believe that these illusions will definitely be able to make these illusions shine in this world. Although the rewards this time are all auxiliary illusions, as the system said, with his insidious cunning, no. It should be said that he is very wise and close to a demon. Illusion is meant to be used by people with high IQ and combat literacy in order to exert the most powerful effect. If the magic that Loki mastered before, the effect is to deceive the opponent's eyes and thus deceive the opponent's brain. Then the effect of illusion is completely opposite. It uses magic power to interfere with the opponent's brain, so that the information received by the opponent's five senses will be deviated. After obtaining these auxiliary illusions, coupled with the magic of Asgard that Loki has already mastered, as well as the freezing power of the strongest ultimate move, it will undoubtedly greatly enrich his tactics and style of play. For example, the technique of walking in darkness can interfere with the opponent's vision, causing everything in his eyes to fall into the abyss of darkness. Once the opponent's vision is deprived by Loki, even if his other senses are equally sensitive, he will inevitably show his flaws in a short moment due to temporary discomfort. At this time, use the power of freezing to launch a fatal blow to it, and it is easy to hit a higher hit rate and damage. There are also the Nirvana bow technique that can make people fall into a baby-like sleep, the magic here and now technique that can make multiple people have visual hallucinations at the same time, the fox heart technique that can make the enemy lose their way and become a road idiot, and so on. But what Loki likes the most is the magical technique of Narukami. The illusion is about taking everyone's fear and making it real, and making it feel like it's reality. That is to say, the greater the fear in the subject's heart, the stronger the impact of this technique. Let the opponent see the most feared image in the heart, and carry out a spiritual blow. This kind of effect is just in line with the style of his trick god. Compared to defeating the opponent cleanly, he still prefers to defeat the opponent after playing with his heart. That is the pork heart with shrimps in Legendary. However, if Loki wants to apply these illusions to actual combat, he may have to wait for a while. Now entering Kamartaj, the first task must be to learn the magic of Kamartaj. The matter of improving the proficiency of ninja genjutsu skills can only be pushed back a little bit. For Loki, who has already learned Asgard magic, learning in Kamartaj will naturally not need to learn from the basics like Strange in the future. The course arrangement that Yesher made for him was very free. In addition to going to the Supreme Mage Holy Place every morning to learn about the origin of white magic and Kamartaj, Loki spent the rest of the time in the library, reading the magic books one after another. It is also through Taishi's narration and reading of a large number of magic books that Loki gradually understands the difference between Kamartaj's magic, or white magic, and the magic he learned before. The first thing that can be confirmed is that no matter which system of magic it is, the magic power consumed by the user comes from a real god. Born from the ancient times of chaos, these gods were born with unparalleled wisdom and power. The gods share their power with weak mortals for different purposes. Mortals, on the other hand, divide the gods into the Holy Spirit, which represents good, and the Mephisto, which symbolizes evil, according to the moral views evolved from their own civilization. The magic with the Holy Spirit as the source of magic power is called white magic. On the contrary, the magic with the source of magic power from Mephisto is called black magic. Definitely, not all magic is black and white. For example, the people of Asgard and the false gods like Frost Titan, who are mistaken for gods by mortals because of their great strength, are an exception. These races are usually descendants of the gods and can inherit part of the power of the gods through blood. The difference lies in whether the transmission of magic power is based on faith or blood. Both lead to the same goal, but also have their own advantages and disadvantages. With faith as the link, a mortal can gain extremely powerful strength in a very short period of time. Take Kamartaj's mage as an example. It may only take a few years or even a few months for a person with extraordinary ability to obtain the source of magic power through faith and become a strong level godfather. But the disadvantage is that once the gods who are the source of magic power cut off the supply of magic power between the two parties, no matter how powerful they are, they will become water without a source and a tree without roots. And with the bloodline as the connection, even though they are born with impressive strength, the source of magic power will not be at risk of being cut off. But if you want to grow into a real strong person, you need to go through a long time of precipitation. Just like Thor, according to the plot in the movie, it took more than 1,000 years to truly activate the power of Thor in his body and become a strong-level godfather who can stand shoulder to shoulder with Odin. Loki's situation is similar, but because he is a time traveler and has the system's cheat, he temporarily grows faster than Thor. But now because the system task cannot be completed, it means that the system plugin is temporarily blocked, so he seeks to find a way to break through the bottleneck of blood from Kamartaj's magic. Due to the different sources of magic power, Loki cannot directly use the white magic and black magic recorded in the magic books of Kamartaj, unless he is willing to give up the advantages of his own bloodline and switch to the belief of a certain holy god or Mephisto. So for the current Loki, there are only two ways to achieve a breakthrough. The first is to find the laws in magic, so as to break down the barriers between different magic systems. As a time traveler, Loki knows that there are success stories on this path. For example, the future supreme mage Ancient One and his disciple Kaecilius. Chapter 9, Part 1. Ancient One and Kaecilius are the mage of Kamartaj. The source of the original magic power must come from the founder of white magic, the Trinity god Visandi. But later, in order to obtain a longer lifespan, the source of their magic power became the Mephisto Dormammu of the Dark Dimension. But after the transformation of the source of magic power, the two can still use the white magic recorded in the Book of Emperor Waishan, because they broke the system barrier between white magic and black magic. However, this path is not suitable for Loki. Not to say that Loki is not as smart as Ancient One and Kaecilius, but for both sides, the difficulty of this path is completely different. If we talk about the conversion of different beliefs, for mage it is like changing lanes while driving. Although a little speed will be lost, the direction of progress will not change. So for a bloodline inheritor like Loki, it is like taking a cable car down from the top of the mountain to the foot of the mountain, and then climbing up the ladder on foot. Not only do you have to give up the advantages you have gained, but the process of climbing back to the top is also very difficult. However, the second way may not be much easier and simpler than the first way. The second way to achieve a breakthrough is to decipher the mystery of the true source of magic power. The same magic, the effect produced by consuming a small amount of magic power, is completely different from the effect produced by investing a lot of magic power. Take the illusion magic that Loki is best at. When using a small amount of magic power, this magic may only be able to deceive the eyes of mortals. Add more magic, and even a false god like Thor can't tell the difference between illusion and reality. If it is a little more extreme, Loki can borrow the energy of an infinite gems to exert the effect of illusion magic. Then it is likely that the whole world will be deceived by his magic. When the world couldn't tell whether it was an illusion or an entity, the original illusion became a duplication with a real entity. Therefore, only Loki can crack the mystery of the source of magic power and obtain even greater magic power. Even if he can't learn all kinds of powerful magic recorded by Kamartaj, Loki's strength can be broken through. After confirming his next research direction, Loki came to the holy place the next day and asked Dyesha his own question. Teacher, now I know that the source of all mages' magical power is a powerful god who rules a certain dimension. But the magic power of these gods cannot be endless. For a long time, they have continuously shared their own power with their believers or descendants. Where does their own magic power come from? Hearing the question raised by Loki, Dyesha couldn't help but look stunned, obviously very surprised in his heart. He didn't give an answer immediately. Loki sat quietly across from him, waiting for his answer. Dyesha frowned, and after thinking for a long time, he finally said, "To be honest, I never thought about this matter before you raised this question today. From ancient times to the present, every supreme mage believes that by believing in Emperor Waishan, one can obtain the blessings of the gods. It is a matter of course. Under such limitations of thinking, I may not be able to give a suitable answer to the question you raised. but I can provide you with a research idea which may help you uncover the mystery of the problem. Even Duresh, who is the supreme mage, doesn't know the answer to this question, which makes Loki feel a little disappointed. But for the research idea proposed by this level godfather, Loki still has a little hope in his heart. Daishi didn't make any excuses and directly expressed his thoughts. As a mortal, I can't imagine why the gods are so powerful. But the artifact created by the gods may be able to provide us with some clues from the side. Eye of Agamotto, as the god of the trinity of Waishandi, Agamotto, is an artifact left in Kamar-Taj, in addition to being able to help mage touch the taboo of time. It is actually a source of magic power that can provide endless energy for the Eater. If even the artifacts created by the gods can have such characteristics, does that mean that the gods have mastered a method to obtain endless magic power? After hearing the guess made by Daishi, Loki showed a very shocked expression on his face. As a time traveler, he definitely knows that the reason why Eye of Agamotto possesses inexhaustible magic power is because of the time gem, which is the core of the magic weapon. Way of magic. However, although Daishi's guess was wrong, it also reminded Loki that in order to obtain greater magical power, it is not necessary to start with the gods. Compared with gods who are inaccessible in other dimensions, at the moment exists in the two infinite gems on the earth, which is a better choice. Because even a mortal like Howard Stark, after studying Tesseract, can invent the unreasonable technology of arc reactor. There's no reason why Loki, a master of magic with extraordinary abilities, would gain nothing from it, right? Thinking of this, Loki immediately stood up excitedly from the chair and bowed deeply to Daishi. Thank you, teacher. I think I have found my next direction. After Loki finished speaking, he bid farewell to Duresh and walked out of the holy place. He didn't ask the other party to lend him the Eye of Agamotto for research. Instead of embarrassing Daishi, he should focus on Tesseract. Odin hid the Tesseract in a small town called Tunsberg not long ago, and at the moment can be said to be in a completely unowned state. In this way, no matter how long he wants to study, no one will take care of him. It is obviously more suitable than Eye of Agamotto, which already has a master. However, he had just stepped out of the gate of the holy place, and immediately turned around and returned to Daishi, and said with a smirk on his face, Teacher, can you please open a portal for me and send me to Tintin in Europa? Spurg? At this time, Loki really envied Kamar-Taj's mage from the bottom of his heart. Wherever you want to go, just open a portal and you're done. Unlike him, you have to call Heimdall first, and then ask Heimdall to turn on Bifrost and teleport himself there. I don't know if the system will reward spatial skills in the future. Forget it. Instead of relying on the system, it's more practical to ask AI Chui for help after I go back. Loki thought to himself. Chapter 10, Part 1. Although he did not travel to Tunsberg with Odin and Thor, the Tesseract's hiding place is no secret to Loki. According to the memory before the crossing, Loki knew that the Tesseract was hidden in the rock tower castle of Tunsberg and was protected from the world by the guardians of the church. But since the location of the Tesseract has been known by Loki, no matter what kind of defense it is, it will be useless. Even the vault of Odin, which was guarded by Asgard soldiers, Loki was able to enter as if no one was there. How could the rock tower castle of Tunsberg, guarded by mere mortals, stand in the way of Loki? With the help of Supreme Mage, Loki, who came to Tunsberg through the portal, quickly found the destination of this visit. When he came near the castle, he realized that the guards here were actually not strict. Think about it too, since it is decided to hide Tesseract here, it is natural that the fewer people who know it, the better. After all, it is easy to make one person loyal, but it is much more difficult to make a group of people loyal. Loki estimated that, except for the guards in the church who knew the existence of the Tesseract, the guards patrolling outside the castle had no idea what they were protecting. Facing a group of mortals without any extraordinary ability, Loki didn't intend to assume the posture of sneaking into Odin's vault. The use of a magical skill like Mirror Flower and Water Moon here is simply a sledgehammer. Even a trainee who has been practicing for 2.5 years can't do this kind of thing. It just so happened that Loki hadn't practiced the ninja genjutsu that he received after completing the side mission, so he just took this opportunity to practice. After the ninja illusion skill has undergone system transformation, the most convenient thing is that it can not only be activated with magic power, but also does not need to be sealed. The technique of Nirvana Abode. As Loki activated the illusion, phantoms of white feathers appeared above the rock tower castle and slowly fell from the air. As for the guards around the castle, those who saw these phantom feathers lost consciousness and fell into a coma before they realized why there were feathers appearing in the sky at this time. Even though Loki's current illusion skill proficiency is still at 0%, but with his magical ability to use the technique of Nirvana Abode, it is still very easy to kill a few mortals. But if the enemy was stronger, Loki would not dare to make such a big deal. The technique of Nirvana Abode is an A-level illusion technique, and its difficulty cannot be underestimated. This was the first attempt to use illusion, perhaps because the target was too weak, and it didn't bring any improvement in Loki's skill proficiency. Loki doesn't care about that. The purpose of his coming here was not to practice illusion. The tesseract hidden here is the key to his trip here. Once he successfully analyzes the method to break through the magic power bottleneck from the tesseract, it can bring him a strength improvement that far exceeds a 100% proficiency in ninja genjutsu. After getting rid of the guards patrolling outside the castle, Loki easily entered the Church of Rock Tower Castle. Inside the church, Loki repeated his old trick, using the technique of Nirvana Abode again to make the church guards sleep like a baby. Then came to a stone wall carved with the relief of the World Tree, pressed the mechanism on the relief, and took out the tesseract hidden in it. After restoring the wall mechanism, directly used the power of tesseract to teleport back to Kamar Taj through space. And just like that, Loki took the tesseract from the castle's chapel without much effort. But the easiest part ends here, and the following research is the most difficult and critical part. But Loki didn't lock himself in the room because he studied tesseract. He still followed the previous habit, went to the holy place every morning to receive the teachings of Dyesha, and went to the library to read various types of magic books in the afternoon. Although he can't use these magics now, it doesn't mean he won't be able to use them in the future. What's more, these magic books in the Kamar Taj library are either the inheritance left by a certain god, or the notes left by the former supreme mage. If you read more, maybe you can comprehend the mystery of tesseract by analogy? Not to mention, after more than half a year of hard work by Loki, with the help of the magic knowledge he learned in Kamar Taj, he has come up with some research results. It's just that this research result is a bit far from the goal he set. But it's also a happy thing. At least Loki doesn't have to go to AI Tree for help, because after more than half a year of research, Loki has developed a space magic from tesseract, and he temporarily named the space magic he researched for himself, Flying Thor. It's really not that Loki wants to copy it. It is really the effect of this space magic, which is too similar to the Flying Thor art in the anime he had seen in his previous life. Congratulations to the host, self-created magic skills, Flying Thor. Skills will be automatically included in the system skill library, and the host can check the skill proficiency through this system. Loki, open the skill module. Skill, Flying Thor proficiency, 0%, skill introduction. Although it is the host's self-created magic, the highly similar skill effect makes it difficult for this system not to suspect that the host has the suspicion of respect, 11. This skill needs to cooperate with the magic imprint left in advance. After the skill is activated, the host can jump directly through the space and instantly move to the previously marked place. After reading the skill introduction written by the system without authorization, Loki felt even more that the magic he created was exactly the same as another ninjutsu called Flying Thor's Jutsu. But as long as the skills are good enough, Loki doesn't care what is copied or not. What's more, because of this self-created skill, the system thoughtfully released a new side mission for itself. Ding, it is detected that the host's self-created skills are included in this system. In order to encourage the host to make persistent efforts, a phase side task is now released. Subquest 2, Level 1. As the host's first self-created skill, don't you feel ashamed at 0% skill proficiency? Please increase your skill proficiency to 100% as soon as possible. The second phase of the mission will be released after the completion of the Level 1 mission. There's no reward for completing the Level 1 mission? Loki pouted, somewhat dissatisfied. System, you must have deliberately withheld my reward this time because of the hemorrhage in the last side mission, right? System, how can the host defile people's innocence out of thin air? You are maliciously speculating. As a principled system, all behaviors of this system are absolutely in line with the rules. If the host wants to get the task reward, he must hurry up and complete the task. I haven't read what your so-called rule stipulates. Who knows if there will be a bug? Knowing that I'm doing my best to study the mysteries of Tesseract, I even released side missions to destroy my Tao heart. After I solve the Tesseract matter, I must copy it. I was wrong. Come out with a few more original skills and squeeze the wool of your stingy system. Chapter 11 The Traitor, Part 1. Although he hasn't found a way to break through the bottleneck of magic power, after more than half a year of research on Tesseract, Loki has found some clues. At such a critical moment, even in the face of the temptation of system rewards, Loki still firmly chose to continue the research on Tesseract. However, in order to save the time spent going back and forth between the Supreme Mage Holy Place, the library, and the dormitory room at 3 o'clock every day, Loki tried to leave his own magic mark in the 3 places, a purple demon emoji with a smirk. This magical imprint is quite suitable for his title of the God of Lies and Tricks. The Supreme Mage Holy Place, the library, and Loki's dormitory room, the distance between the 3 places is not too far. For Loki, who has 0 proficiency in Flying Thor, he can also try it with confidence. So in the following days, many mages were taken aback by Loki's sudden appearance of movement. Even the Supreme Mage Dyesha, when he saw Loki flashing in front of him for the first time, was inevitably frightened. Dyesha, who has always been in a calm state of mind, couldn't help but gritted his teeth and looked at Loki and asked, Did you do it on purpose, or did you accidentally? Faced with Diezi's expression of wanting to kill himself, Loki finally didn't answer, and said sincerely, accidental. Absolutely inadvertently. I have just created this magic, and I am not very proficient in using it. Teacher, you have a lot of it, so please forgive me. Hearing Loki say that this is a new magic he just created, Diezi's expression changed instantly. He grabbed Loki's arm excitedly, looked at Loki in shock and asked, wait a minute, did you just say that you created a brand new magic, and this magic is also a space magic? Diezi's excitement is not unreasonable. Kamar-Taj has existed for thousands of years. Although there are more and more magic books in the library, it has never been heard that mage has created new magic. Even he, the supreme mage, still uses the magic handed down by the ancient gods who don't know how many years ago. The news that Loki successfully created his own magic is definitely a first for Deizi. Hey, it's thanks to the research idea you provided me, teacher. This space magic is actually an unexpected gain in my research process. Loki explained. I originally wanted to directly create an infinite source of magic power. Isn't it very bold? The whole source of magic power, infinite magic power. Just this idea, exactly this idea, infinite magic power source. When I first conducted research, I told everyone that I wanted to be an infinite source of magic power. All the old Wong from the mage library, the old Zhang from the canteen, all of them are very excited. The source of infinite magic power. I have been talking about the source of infinite magic power. I have been preparing to study the source of infinite magic power, but then I gave up. Loki was talking about it complacently, but Deizi was beside him. But the more he heard, the more black lines on his forehead became more and more, until finally couldn't bear it anymore. He interrupted loudly, okay, stop talking nonsense. Hurry up and tell me what is going on with this space magic you created. Oh, no problem, teacher, let me tell you. Just when Loki introduced the magic fly, Thor he developed to Deizi in the supreme mage holy place. On the other side in a dark room in Kamar-Taj, a mage was performing a weird sacrifice ceremony. I am here to summon you, Demon King. Heard the call, please come to my side. Let me see your true face. While chanting incantations in a strange tone, he used magic power to construct an evil magic totem. With the complete formation of the magic totem, the entire sacrificial ceremony was officially completed. It was at this time that a huge face shrouded in countless dark mist appeared in the mind of this mage. Just seeing the other person's eyes vaguely through those dark fogs made him unable to help but have the idea of worshipping. And why are you calling me? My believers. A rough and hoarse voice sounded in the mage's mind. Even though the two parties were not in the same time and space, after hearing the voice, he crawled to the ground piously before responding tremblingly in his heart. Great God of darkness, Lord Dormammu, I have found a way to fulfill your long-cherished wish. This is why Deizi has such strict control over some magic books that record black magic. Not every powerful mage has the firm will to match his strength. Once the thoughts waver a little, they will be led into the abyss of depravity by the temptation hidden in those black magic. Obviously, this mage was bewitched by Dormammu. Oh, you mean, you have already found a way to allow me to successfully descend to your dimension without being hindered by that old Daisher? Yes, my lord. I have a brilliant idea. Quick, tell me your solution quickly. If you can help me successfully complete my descent, I will grant you to get rid of the entanglement of death and obtain eternal and endless life. Master, please listen to me. Recently, a newcomer came to Kamar-Taj, but the identity of this newcomer is not simple. He is the king of Asgard, the second son of Odin. After knowing the news, an idea popped into my mind immediately. Is it possible to kidnap him as a hostage and force Kamar-Taj to contact the enchantment left by Agamotto? If Deizi agrees to this condition, then Master, you will naturally be able to come to our dimension easily. But if he doesn't agree, then Odin's son is worthless. If Odin finds out that his son died in Kamar-Taj, and it was because of Daisher, Master, do you think it is possible for Asgard to declare war on Kamar-Taj for revenge? Once the mages of Kamar-Taj fall into the quagmire of war, there will certainly be negligence in the guards of the three holy places. When the time comes when the snipe and the clam will fight, I will be able to take advantage of it and destroy the three holy places. Without the barrier protection formed by the three holy places, Master, you can easily complete the rule of our dimension. Ha ha ha, this is indeed a brilliant idea. It seems that my long-standing wish is finally coming true. This plan, you can do it with confidence and boldly. I will give you more powerful power, and you must bind that son of Odin back to me. Yes, my master. Guaranteed to complete the task. Chapter 12, Part 1. During the day, the moment when the sun sets, Loki left the library at this time every day, and after a simple dinner, he returned to his room to continue his research on Tesseract. And the depraved mage who planned to kidnap Loki has obviously already passed the investigation and mastered the law of Loki's activities. Only recently, after Loki has mastered the flying Thor, he will use the flying Thor to teleport back to the room after dinner. So the only place he can do it is in the very short distance between Loki leaving the library and entering the cafeteria. Although the distance of this journey is short, with years of experience in Kamar-Taj, he still found an excellent ambush location. Great timing, great ambush locations, plus he's just gotten more power from Dormammu. With the right time, place and people, and the fact that he was doing mental calculations but not intentionally, he was full of confidence in his actions this time. The ambush has been set, and all that remains is to wait for Loki to fall into his trap step by step. At the moment, the afterglow of the sun has not completely disappeared, but against the only light, the environment in Kamar-Taj looks even darker. The fallen mage hid in the shadows, and at the same time used black magic to completely cover up his aura. Soon, he heard a clear sound of footsteps coming from not far away. After the footsteps gradually approached, corrupted mage's eyes lit up. The person who came was his long-awaited target, Loki Odinson. Loki was as usual. On the way back, his brain was still constantly simulating the next research ideas on Tesseract. He didn't notice at all that on the road he must pass every day, someone had already set up an ambush and was staring at him. After all, Loki has neither knowledgeable arrogance nor little Spider-Man's spider telepathy, a skill that can predict danger. When Loki realized that someone was attacking him, he was once again trapped in the mirror space. However, compared to the nervousness of being imprisoned by the Supreme Mage for the first time, this time Loki, who has already flew Thor beside him, is obviously much more relaxed. Definitely, Loki won't relax his guard just because his mind is relaxed. The first time he felt something was wrong, he had already used the ability of Mirror Flower and Watermoon to protect his own safety. Just as Loki was observing his surroundings vigilantly, a gloomy voice came from behind him. Jia, Loki Odinson, you finally showed up. I have been waiting here for a long time. Loki turned away, expecting to see who it was that was ambushing him. What can be seen is only a figure with black aura all over his body. But at this time, Loki has been able to roughly guess the situation he is currently facing, because he is no stranger to the black figure that suddenly appeared behind him in front of him. Having read a lot of magic books in Kamar-Taj, he recognized it at the first sight. The black magic in the book. This shadow is nothing more than an entity duplication formed using dark power. It seems that there is another lost lamb, who was bewitched by Dormammu. It's fine if I don't find out. Since you have already come to the door, then I will waste a little time today, and help the teacher to clean up the door. Midgard is protected by an enchantment constructed by the 3 holy places left by Agamotto. Even a dimension Mephisto like Dormammu has very limited power that can be transmitted. If before creating space magic to fly Thor, Loki might still be a little apprehensive. But now, the mirror space not only cannot completely imprison him, but also allows Loki to unleash his full power without restraint. From Loki's point of view, his own victory was already assured when the other party had evil intentions. As expected of being Odin's son, what a shame. That's right, in the eyes of you high gods, we mortals are just ants who might be trampled to death if we are not careful. Responding to Loki was another shadowy duplication emerging from the shadows. That is, after the second shadow duplication appeared, more and more shadow duplications began to appear in the mirror space one after another, completely surrounding Loki in less than a minute. After the siege was formed, these hundreds of shadow duplications said in unison, "However, there is a saying in my hometown called, ants kill elephants. If your elephant doesn't want to be killed by our group of ants today if you are going to die, I advise you to obediently give up resistance and catch him without a fight." Unexpectedly, after hearing what the other party said, Loki directly covered his face and laughed wildly. What are you laughing at? Hundreds of angry questions came from all directions of Loki. It seemed that in the next second these shadow duplications would swarm up and tear him to pieces. Loki stopped laughing slowly, but still had a mocking smile on his face, and his eyes were full of undisguised contempt. I said, "Did you make a mistake? Or did you really dare to ambush me with only this means?" If this is the case, then I can only regret to tell you that quantitative changes are meaningless if they do not lead to qualitative changes. Moreover, I am not an elephant. If I have to use a metaphor, it must be a dragon flying in the sky. No matter how many small ants there are, it is impossible to hook the dragon flying in the sky, let alone cause any damage to the dragon. Loki's words were like an ignited fuse, and the emotions of the hundreds of shadow duplications around him were instantly detonated, and 2 spatial blades immediately appeared in their hands, and they rushed towards him with crazy roars. Until this moment, Loki was still calm. I saw him utter a few words in an almost inaudible volume amidst the chaotic rushing sound of shadow duplication. Ice Age. Swish. The moment Loki's voice fell, with his feet as the center, a powerful freezing air began to spread rapidly. Where the freezing air passes, everything it touches turns into ice cubes at the extremely low temperature. The first to bear the brunt were the duplications of the shadows closest to Loki. They all maintained the movement of rushing towards Loki just now, like lifelike ice sculptures, densely arranged around Loki. In just a few breaths, the mirror space that was still very noisy just now, at the moment has become audible. Hundreds of shadow duplications holding space blades all turned into ice sculptures under Loki's Ice Age move. Boom. Loki casually sent out a magical impact to make up the knife, blasting all the ice sculptures made of these shadow duplications into pieces. After finishing all this, Loki didn't move anymore, just stood there quietly, constantly observing the surrounding situation. After waiting for a few minutes, the man behind the scenes who used the shadow duplication still did not appear, nor did he continue to launch a second wave of attacks. After confirming that the other party had fled here, Loki began to sense the magic mark left in the room, and launched Thor to leave the mirror space. Chapter 13 Dormammu's Inspiration, Part 1. Loki, who returned to the room, did not conduct Tesseract research tonight for the first time, because at this moment, his heart was full of doubts, and he couldn't devote himself wholeheartedly to the research. It's not that he has doubts about the true identity of the mage who ambushed him. Kamartaj has been passed down for countless years, and every once in a while, there will always be a few traitors who can't stand the temptation of Mephisto. Now that this man has accepted the power that Dormammu bestowed on him, as long as he is in Kamartaj, it will be easy to find him. However, Loki estimated that the other party should have fled Kamartaj after the ambush operation failed just now. Hunting down a mage who can open a portal is no easy feat. What really confuses Loki is, what is the purpose of the other party in ambush him? Analyzing from the information revealed in the man's previous words, killing himself is definitely not the purpose of the other party. Because the other party had made a clear threat, if he didn't want to die, he would be caught without a fight. Then the reason why that person attacked me at the risk of revealing his identity must have something to do with Dormammu behind him. After thinking of this, Loki's thoughts immediately became clear. What Dormammu wants to accomplish is nothing more than conquering the dimension formed by the Nine Kingdoms. As Midgard is the weakest existence among the Nine Kingdoms, once Dormammu breaks through here, it will be able to complete the invasion of the entire dimension along the world tree system linking the Nine Kingdoms. So, are you treating me like a persimmon and wanting to use me as a breakthrough point? With Loki's wisdom, once he found the train of thought, he quickly guessed the purpose of that mage's actions today. It has to be said that even Shindu, the master of his trick, couldn't help but be overwhelmed by the method the other party came up with. The only thing the other party miscalculated might be that they didn't expect Loki to be an asshole. Otherwise, even if Loki can defeat the opponent in the ambush tonight, he will not be able to escape the prison of the mirror space. After figuring out what happened tonight, Loki picked up the Tesseract, ready to continue his research. But at this moment, a flash of inspiration suddenly appeared in Loki's mind, and the expression on his face became very serious, as if he had thought of something crucial. It's really like the blessing of misfortune rests on it, and the blessing of misfortune rests on it. If I hadn't been ambushed and attacked by Dormammu's men tonight, I'm afraid I wouldn't have remembered such important information. And this information, which was inspired by Dormammu, made Loki extremely excited. Dormammu was once a human necromancer. Yes, Dormammu, the now famous ruler of the Dark Dimension, was once a mere mortal. But after accidentally discovering the existence of the Dark Dimension, he gave up his physical body and entered it with his own soul, and then became the powerful dimension Mephisto it is today. So, why did Dormammu choose to give up his physical body when he first entered the Dark Dimension? After existing in the form of a soul, how did he obtain such a huge magical power? Does this mean that there is such a method that can directly obtain magic power from the dimensional space through the soul, without borrowing the power of others through the transmission of blood or belief? And it's not just Dormammu. It seems that every powerful god rules a dimension that belongs to them alone. What about infinite gems? Is the energy inside them really endless? Or, because they can replenish energy from the surrounding space all the time, they appear to be inexhaustible? This is a direction worth trying. If I can directly obtain magic power from the surrounding space and replenish the magic power consumption caused by using magic at any time, wouldn't that be equivalent to having endless magic power? Loki, who decided to give it a try, immediately changed his mind and began to adjust the direction of the next research. In the previous research, Loki has been trying to crack the mystery in this way by injecting his own magic power into Tesseract. And this time, in order to verify his guess, Loki intends to use his soul to perceive Tesseract directly. So Loki used astral projection for the first time since learning magic, allowing his soul to leave his body. The reason why he used it for the first time was because the system had reminded him when he was learning this magic. Although after his rebirth as Loki, his appearance is completely different from his previous life, but the shape of his soul still maintains his previous life without any change. So if after he uses astral projection, others see the true appearance of his soul, it may cause unpredictable consequences. After knowing this, Loki has not used this magic. Even when Frigga was teaching, she still found various reasons to refuse to practice. However, with Loki's super high ability in magic, it was very easy to use this magic for the first time. After the soul left the body and floated in the air, Loki felt that his thinking became clearer, and his thinking speed increased several times. So much so that when he looked at the real world around him, everything seemed to be played in slow motion and slowed down. Loki raised his hand and touched his face. The moment his hand and face touched, the strange yet familiar feeling made him recognize immediately that this was his previous appearance before time travel. Having lived in this world for more than 20 years, he didn't have any emotion. Just to calm his mind for a while, Loki began to try to observe the world completely through the perception of the soul. He seems to be able to vaguely feel that there is something he is very familiar with in the surrounding space. It's just that no matter how he thinks, he still can't catch a clue. Without dwelling on this for too long, Loki turned his attention to the Tesseract. If it is said that when observing the Tesseract with the naked eye, what you see is a small square emitting faint blue light. Now the Tesseract that Loki perceives through the soul is like a black hole that is constantly attracting and devouring everything. Having perceived this, Loki's expression immediately became excited, because this proves that his guess may be correct. Tesseract, or infinite gems, the energy it originally possesses is not endless, but because it obtains energy from the dimensional space all the time, it creates this illusion. Chapter 14 Soul Castle, Part 1. Owner. The fallen mage who ambushes Loki at the moment is like a snail that has been shrinking its shell. The whole person crawled on the ground and curled up into a ball, his body trembling uncontrollably. Although he managed to escape from Kamartaj after the failed attack, being caught by Kamartaj might not be a bad thing compared to facing Dormammu's interrogation. So, the task assigned to you failed? With the power I gave you, you can't even do anything to a little Asgard? Dormammu asked calmly. That is to say, over the years, the invasion of Midgard has failed too many times, and now it can be so calm. If Dormammu had been throwing a tantrum every time he failed, he would have been blasted. Even so, from his calm tone, one can still feel the murderous intent hidden in it. For Dormammu, Loki is nothing more than a character whose strength even level Godfather can't reach. If one's followers can't even deal with this kind of fun, no matter how clever his brain is, he has no value in Dormammu's eyes. And there is no value of existence. What awaits him is definitely only destruction. The mage also seemed to hear the killing intent in Dormammu's tone, and quickly raised his head to explain, Master, I really can't blame me for the miss this time. Originally, everything went smoothly according to my plan, but who would have thought that Loki would be so powerful? Just in the blink of an eye, the freezing air released from his body froze the hundreds of shadow duplications I created into ice cubes. If I hadn't been cautious enough to keep a safe distance from him from the beginning, I'm afraid even I would end up in the same end. I also ran away in order to bring this news back to the Master, so you know. Otherwise, even if I risk my life, I will definitely continue to complete the task. Snort. You don't need to make any excuses for your incompetence. However, it was beyond my expectation that the Asgardian had the ability to freeze. I heard before that Odin's eldest son was born with the power of awakening thunder. Unexpectedly, his second son also possessed such a special ability, plus his crazy daughter. Odin is lucky. Since you failed for the first time, I will let you go temporarily. However, capital crimes can be avoided, and living crimes cannot be escaped. As punishment, I will take away 10 years of your life. Dormammu's words are full of false benevolence. For these depraved mages who pursue eternal life, apart from death, there is no punishment more cruel than life extraction. As for the so-called death penalty, Dormammu is not a kind-hearted lord. The reason why he didn't kill the other party was simply because the other party was still useful. While that mage is no match for Loki, he can be used as an excellent bait to lure Loki into new traps. Even if it's trash, Dormammu has to squeeze every last bit of value out of it before destroying it. Kamartaj, the supreme mage holy place. In the daily morning class, Loki told Derisi what happened yesterday. Deyesher felt sorry for Loki's attack in Kamartaj, but more of it was the helplessness of being the supreme mage. White magic has limits, it cannot violate the rules of nature. This also means that many things that black magic can easily achieve after breaking through the limitations of morality, white magic will never be able to do. But mages are not gods, they are all mortals with their own inner attachments and desires. In this case, it is inevitable that mage will be seduced by the dark forces and become a follower of Mephisto. Among them are even heroes who have made great contributions to resisting the invasion of other dimensions. Sometimes, even Deyesher, who is the supreme mage, will inevitably be shaken in the face of Mephisto's bewitching. In the end, he was able to persist because he was not indifferent to the conditions offered by Mephisto. It's just that he has seen too many examples of his colleagues being deceived by Mephisto. No matter how nice things Mephisto promises, very few of them can actually be realized in the end. Whenever I think of the eyes of these people struggling to die in despair, and the mocking laughter of the Mephistos playing with them, the eager desire into Yesi's heart will gradually calm down. Loki, who has never had such an experience, naturally cannot empathize with the Yesi's emotions. However, in Loki's memory, Asgard actually had similar problems. At that time, Odin had just ended his campaign against the Nine Realms and became the ruler of the Nine Realms. But in the face of the many Asgard warriors who followed him to fight, Odin simply couldn't come up with enough awards to reward them. As a wise monarch, Odin is very clear that if he cannot solve this problem, he will plant huge amounts of hidden dangers for his future rule. In order to completely solve this problem, Odin summoned all the necromancers in Asgard at that time and created Valhalla, known as the Land of Heaven, with exquisite magic. And it also has a more familiar name, Soul Castle. All heroes who have made sacrifices and contributions to Asgard, after their death, their souls will be led to the Soul Castle and continue their lives in another way. It is equivalent to Odin's conditions of eternal life and the glory of heroes as conditions in exchange for the warrior's filial piety to him. Loki thinks that if Kamartaj also builds his own Soul Castle, the situation that caused Yesi's headache may be improved. After hearing the idea proposed by Loki, Derisi also thinks that this method is indeed worth a try. The existence of the Soul Castle not only provides a perfect home for the hero's soul, but also minimizes the possibility of Mage being bewitched by Mephisto. I'm thinking about the establishment of the Soul Castle. Now let's talk about your research. If you encounter any new problems, you can bring them up and we can discuss them. After studying in Kamartaj during this period, although Loki's strength has not improved much, his attainments in magic theory have already surpassed the supreme mage of Dyeshur. So now Daresh will say that this question can be discussed instead of directly saying that he can help Loki answer. Teacher, this is the second thing I want to explain to you today. I seem to have found the answer to the mystery of the source of magic power. Chapter 15, Part 1. Through direct observation and research on Tesseract in the Soul State, Loki quickly verified his previous guess. The energy originally possessed by the Tesseract is not endless, and it is only because it obtains energy from the dimensional space all the time that it maintains a constant energy. The key to this process of continuously obtaining energy from the dimensional space lies in an energy matrix built inside Tesseract. This energy matrix is like a filter, which will filter and purify the energy obtained from the dimensional space, making the originally violent and chaotic energy mild and usable. The familiar aura that Loki felt in the space around his soul before is actually the untamed magic power floating in the space. Those ancient and powerful gods must be like Tesseract, through the same or different methods, absorbing the free energy absorption in the dimensional space into themselves, and then transforming it into a more peaceful and easy-to-use magic power. These peaceful magic powers are transmitted through faith or blood, which is the source of magic power for mages to cast all their magic. But if a mage can simplify the chain of magic power transmission and use itself as the starting point to domesticate the violent magic power in the dimensional space, then he can at least reach a level comparable to that of a god in terms of magic power and obtain inexhaustible magic power. This is what Loki has been pursuing, the way to break through the bottleneck of magic power. And this method is also called by Loki, Immortal Mode. After a night of testing, Loki has basically figured out the prerequisites for opening the fairy mode. The first is to absorb the energy absorption in the dimensional space into your own body. In the soul state, Loki can easily perceive the original energy hidden in the dimensional space. But once the soul returns to the body, this perception will become quite difficult. Only in a state of complete concentration can one vaguely perceive the existence of this energy. In real combat, it is definitely not possible to fight in the soul state. And in the process of fighting, it is impossible to maintain the state of concentration. If the energy perception of the first step cannot be completed, then the fairy mode will become a tasteless existence for Loki. Secondly, the raw energy absorbed into the body is a very violent energy. One must have a strong enough physical fitness so as not to be hurt by this domineering energy. In the end, even though the free energy in the dimensional space has been successfully perceived, the energy absorption has been successfully absorbed into the body. Such domineering raw energy cannot be directly used to activate magic. It needs to use its own magic power to dilute it and neutralize the original violent characteristics of the original energy. The mixed magic power not only retains part of the violent characteristics of the original energy, but also makes the magic casted more powerful. At the same time, because of the existence of its original magic power, it is also very easy to control and can perform very fine magic power manipulation. However, these three prerequisites must be met to use the fairy mode, which is a requirement for common mage. For a genius like Loki, there is definitely an easier way. It turns out that his research on Tesseract was not in vain according to the original idea. In the future, Howard Stark will learn from the arc reactor technology developed by Tesseract, which is actually a simplified version of the energy matrix after castrating the automatic energy absorbing function. Because of the existence of the beggar's version of the energy matrix, the powerful energy generated during the cold fusion process is safely bound in the arc reactor and is directly converted into electrical energy in a way with almost no loss. And Loki's plan is to build an energy matrix similar to Tesseract in his body at the cost of consuming all his magic power. Through this energy matrix, Loki can automatically absorb energy into the body from the dimensional space, even if he is not in the trance or soul state. The raw energy that enters the body can be converted into milder magic power through the energy matrix, which can be used by Loki at any time. The excess magic power that is not usually used can also be stored in the set seal in the body, as a second magic source, to deal with the possible situation that energy cannot be absorbed. However, whether this whimsical idea can be successful, Loki has not really tried it. Because once the experiment starts, all the magic power in his body will be put into the construction of the energy matrix. If someone attacked him at this moment, Loki would be powerless to fight back. After all, the corrupted mage who attacked him last night was still at large, and Loki definitely wouldn't take such a risk to start the experiment. But if there is a supreme mage next to him to escort him during the experiment, that is another matter. As long as you concentrate on completing the energy matrix, don't worry about safety, I will protect your safety. Derisi did not refuse Loki's request, because if Loki's vision does come true, it will undoubtedly open up an unprecedented path for magic. Although Derisi still doesn't know yet whether the emergence of this new path will do more harm than good to magic and mage, or the harm outweighs the good. But as he said to Loki before, there are infinite possibilities in Loki, and no one can predict whether his choice at the moment will make the future better or worse. The only thing Daishur can do is to try to guide Loki on a path that is better for everyone. And after getting along with each other for this period of time, Daresh also gradually understands how Loki behaves in the world. On the surface, Loki is a sinister, mischievous kid. But after a deeper understanding, you will find that Loki has his own persistence in everything he does, and will not violate the bottom line in his heart. From Loki's eyes, Daishur has never seen the aloofness of being a god, but only the habit of all beings being equal. It is these little details that make Daishur confirm that Loki has a kind and beautiful heart. He believes that Loki, who has such a kind heart, will not do anything to disappoint him. So even though Loki's experiments are still full of unknowns at this moment, Daresh is willing to support him to break through the fog and pursue the mysteries of magic. Chapter 16 Runaway, Part 1. With Daishur protecting him, Loki can finally let go of all his worries and start trying to build an energy matrix in his body. The process of constructing the energy matrix in the body is actually very similar to the process of the future Tony Stark using the prism accelerator to create new elements. The huge magic power is continuously strengthened in the body and finally gathered at a core point. After repeated expansion and compression, the magic power gathered at the core point finally reaches a balanced state, and the construction of the energy matrix is considered a success. However, after the energy matrix is completed in the body, Loki needs to continuously input magic power into it to maintain the fragile dynamic balance of the energy matrix. So after the energy matrix is completed, it is necessary to energy absorbing from the dimensional space to transform new magic power through the energy matrix. In this way, the energy matrix can be used as a new source of magic, providing magic power for Loki to use magic. And because the energy matrix is obtaining energy from the dimensional space all the time, Loki will no longer have to worry about the lack of mana in the future. In addition, Loki specially set up a magic storage seal in consideration of some special situations where energy absorbing cannot be obtained from the dimensional space. The whole process can be said to be interlocking and thoughtful. But even so, Loki made a mistake. He underestimated the range of these primitive energies floating in the dimensional space, or he overestimated his ability to bear. When the original energy was attracted by the energy matrix and entered Loki's body constantly from the dimensional space, he only felt that scorching lava poured into his body and subconsciously wanted to elementalize and suppress this intense energy. Pain. However, in the process of building the energy matrix just now, Loki's own magic power has been exhausted, and there is no magic power to support his body for elementalization. There is no way. At this time, Loki can only rely on his willpower to forcibly endure the pain. As long as the original energy is converted into new magic power by the energy matrix, then elementalization can be performed again. However, things did not go in the direction Loki expected. The transformation of the energy matrix was indeed successful, and Loki was also successfully elementalized, but the severe pain caused by the influx of raw energy into the body did not decrease at all. Not only that, because there is a steady stream of new magic power generated in the energy matrix, but in a state of extreme pain, Loki cannot effectively control these magic powers at all. So after he became elemental, these out-of-control magical powers turned into low-temperature frozen air and continued to spread outward from Loki in order to seek an outlet for catharsis. Seeing this, DC hurriedly brought Loki into the mirror space to prevent Loki from losing control and causing damage to Kamartaj. In the mirror space, Loki's body is still releasing freezing air, and it is getting worse. The temperature of the surrounding space also began to drop sharply. In just a few breaths, Daisi's mortal body could no longer bear the freezing cold, and retreated from the mirror space to the holy place of Kamartaj. It won't work like this. If Loki is left in the mirror space and his magic power continues to run wild, he may end up freezing himself. We need to move him to a wider place. Daishi thought quickly in his mind, trying to find a suitable location. After a while, Daishi put on a defensive magic weapon for himself, and then entered the mirrored space again. At the moment's mirrored space had completely turned into a frozen world, and the extreme cold made Daishi feel unbearable even though he was wearing a defensive magic weapon. He wasted no time, stretched out his hands that were already shaking from the cold, and opened a portal to Loki's location. Immediately afterwards, Daishi performed astral projection on himself and followed Loki through the portal in a soul state. On the other side of the portal, Daishi chose the highest mountain range in Midgard, the Himalayas. In the Himalayas, Loki can unleash the already runaway magic power in his body without any scruples, and the Himalayas stretches constantly in towering mountain walls and can block the cold that erupts on his body so that it will not spread wantonly. Loki, can you hear my voice? Daishi in the soul state approached Loki, communicating directly through the spirit. Loki, who was suppressing the pain, couldn't respond verbally and mentally, and squeezed out a voice from his nasal cavity with all his strength. It's good if you can hear it. Listen to Loki. This is the center of the Himalayas. There are no people around. You can release the energy in your body to your heart's content. After a while, you will release all the magic power in your body in the shortest possible time. Then seize the short magic power vacuum period and quickly cut off the magic power supply to the energy matrix. This time, Loki didn't respond to Daishi's words, because at the moment he was almost at his limit. After receiving the message from Daishi, Loki no longer endured and completely let go of the restriction on the energy in his body. The next moment, violent freezing air rushed out of Loki's body like a flood that broke a bank. All the objects that came into contact with along the way were covered with a layer of crystal ice. The freezing air that hit the mountain wall quickly climbed towards the top of the mountain, turning the white-topped snow-capped mountains into continuous icebergs in an instant. Especially the closest mountain to Loki, the ice peak formed by the frozen air raised its overall height by more than 1,000 meters, reaching an altitude of 8,848 meters, directly becoming the highest peak in the entire Himalayas. And this mountain, which became the highest peak in the Himalayas because of Loki's magical runaway, will generally be called Mount Everest in the future. Because the temperature dropped sharply, the air pressure in the entire Himalayas dropped sharply, making the surrounding clouds begin to gather here. The clouds rolled up and formed a huge amount of vortex, which continued to extend downwards. But just when Daishi thought that an abnormal storm was about to form, Loki's burst of freezing air instantly turned the entire sky into ice. Then it was quickly shattered under the action of gravity, turning into countless hailstones, falling from the sky. After this series of explosions and releases, Loki finally created an energy vacuum moment in his body, breaking the balance of the energy matrix. Without the attraction of the energy matrix, the riot of primitive energy finally subsided. But Loki didn't know it, because his rampage this time not only created the world's highest peak in Midgard in the Himalayas, but also forced a country north of the mountain into the Little Ice Age. One chapter was missing due to overtime work yesterday, and I will make it up today. Please forgive me. Chapter 17, Part 1. Old Zhang. Do you feel that the temperature has dropped suddenly these few days? It's already getting ready for summer. Why is it still cold in spring at this time? Who knows what's going on with this ghostly weather? It was normal in the morning when the temperature dropped, but it suddenly changed around noon, and there was hail. Anyway, you should wear more. Old Wong. Don't be like whoever catches the wind and cold will be in trouble. On the square in Kamartaj, two passing mage were talking about the abnormal weather changes these days. It's been 3 full days since Loki's magical runaway, and the temperatures around the Himalayas are still showing no sign of warming up. For this unusual weather condition, the mages of Kamartaj do not know what the cause is, nor do they have any solution. The only thing I can do is to add a few more clothes, and occasionally make complaints when chatting with acquaintances. And as the culprit of all this, Loki has not had a good life in the past 3 days. Physical damage is second to none. As a descendant of the Frost Titan royal bloodline, Loki possesses incredible self-healing ability, which allows him to recover from injuries very quickly. The hardest thing to bear was the feeling of emptiness in his body after the mana was exhausted, making Loki feel as if he had become a soulless shell. Even after 3 days of recovery, the magic level in Loki's body has only barely recovered to 1/10 of its original level, and it will take at least a month of recuperation to return to its full state. This is the price Loki has to bear after his risky attempt fails. If it weren't for the Supreme Mage, Deisi, who was escorted by the side before the experiment started, Loki's ending would definitely be even more miserable than it is now. However, although the energy matrix attempt failed, the reason for the failure was not that Loki's conjecture was wrong, but because his body could not withstand the impact of the violent raw energy, which eventually led to everything getting out of control. Now Loki finally understands why Dormammu gave up his human body before entering the dark dimension. Otherwise, he would not be able to withstand the baptism of those dark energies in the dark dimension. In the future, if Loki can obtain a physical strengthening skill from the system, so that the body can withstand the impact of violent energy, there may be a chance to realize the truly perfect fairy mode. But now, Loki can only let the completion progress of this skill stay in the theoretical stage for the time being. However, since the idea of energy absorbing from the dimensional space is correct, at least it proves that another tasteless version of the fairy model is still feasible. As for how it can be used in actual combat, I will leave it to Daishi or other Kamar-Taj mages to solve it. Loki is no longer ready to continue this research, because such a weak skill is useless to his strength improvement. And the failure of this experiment is not all bad for Loki. After the impact of the original energy on the body and the out-of-control runaway of the magic power, Loki's magic power source broke through and finally broke through the bottleneck of magic power that has troubled him for a long time. If magic power is compared to water, and the source of magic power is compared to a container, then Loki's breakthrough is equivalent to changing the water container from a bowl to a basin. Although the basin is still empty now, there is no doubt that it can hold more water than the previous bowl. In addition, his physical attributes, which have not been improved for a long time, have also been stimulated by the super freezing air generated by this runaway. They are no less inferior to Thor, who has received warrior training since he was a child. In the future, maybe you can consider changing jobs to be a warrior or a melee mage. The picture is exciting to think about. It is equivalent to saying that the goal that Loki chose to come to Kamar-Taj in the first place has been completed. Although this process was completely beyond his expectations, as long as the result is satisfactory. During the next month of recuperation, Loki did not maintain a life of 3 points and 1 line as before. The research on Tesseract has ended, all the magic books in the Kamar-Taj library have been browsed, and the goal of breaking through the bottleneck of magic power has been successfully completed. So Loki turned his attention to the only 2 skills that are currently not at full skill proficiency. It just so happens that these 2 skills do not consume much mana, and they are all within the range that his current mana level can bear. Moreover, the skill proficiency of Flying Thor is still the prerequisite for opening the second stage of side missions. Take advantage of the recuperating diagnosis time, and complete the first stage of the task by the way, and strive to get the task reward earlier. But after practicing for a period of time, he found that it was really not easy to start the second stage of the side mission. Loki's skill proficiency in ninja genjutsu has improved the fastest. Illusion and spiritual magic are what he is best at. For the 10 auxiliary illusions included in the skill, Loki has been able to use all of them proficiently after only an hour of practice. A week later, the skill proficiency of ninja genjutsu was directly full, reaching 100%. On the contrary, on the self-created space magic Fly Thor, the improvement of skill proficiency has not been satisfactory. Obviously, there is nothing wrong with his spellcasting skills, but the skill proficiency value on the system panel just can't increase, which makes Loki feel very strange. What is the reason for this? Until the end of the 1-month recuperation period, Loki's magic source was fully replenished, and Thor's skill proficiency had only increased to 19%, not even 1/5. But today Loki did not continue to practice Flying Thor, and put on the proficiency of the skill, because today is the day he left Kamar-Taj, left Midgard, and returned to Asgard. The goal of coming here in the first place has been accomplished, and the injury has fully healed. Loki has no reason to stay in Kamar-Taj. However, apart from the improvement in strength, the biggest gain of Loki's journey in Midgard is getting to know Deisi, a teacher who is both a teacher and a friend. Although due to the limitations of the times and the differences in cultural background between the two, Loki could not agree with many of the views put forward by Daishi. But this does not prevent them from frankly exchanging opinions and exchanging their views. It was with the inspiration of Daishi that Loki later developed the Flying Thor and Immortal modes from Tesseract. Teacher, I won't say any provocative words, but I promise you as the second prince of Asgard, Loki Odinson, whether you or Kamar-Taj need me in the future, you can come to me and help. Yes, I, Loki, will never refuse. Daishi laughed loudly when he heard this and said, ha ha ha, it seems that the purpose of my original decision to agree to Lord Odin has been achieved. You are already on the right path, Loki. Besides, the gates of Kamar-Taj will be open for you. If you want to come back, you can come back anytime. Anyway, you naughty guy has left a magic mark in my holy place. Loki, then let's talk about it, teacher. Don't let me come back at that time. And you still ask me for 3 artifacts as tickets, but I don't have any. After speaking, seeing the old man Daresh blowing his beard and staring, Loki teleported away with Tesseract before he could vent his anger. Humph, this brat is really annoying. I don't know when the next time we will meet, maybe before that time. I, an old man, will have already turned into a dead bone in a tomb. After all, no matter how powerful I am still immortal. Chapter 18 The Truth, Part 1. Coming to the Rock Tower Castle in Tunsberg again, Loki did not trigger another collective sleep, supernatural event. Just quietly returned the Tesseract to Zhao and left this place directly. It was not until he came to a deserted wilderness that Loki called out to Heimdall. But it is estimated that Midgard is too inconspicuous in the 9 kingdoms. Loki called him 2 or 3 times in succession before Bifrost fell from the sky and brought him back to Asgard. After experiencing a dizziness, when Loki came back to his senses, he was already standing in Heimdall Castle guarded by Heimdall. Heimdall, long time no see. Seeing Heimdall, the gatekeeper of Asgard, with a stern face and a statue-like figure standing at the gate, Loki moved up to him and said hello. How have you been recently? Did my stupid old brother take the trouble to come to you for a duel, and then you knocked him down with one move? For Loki's accusation, the expression on Heimdall's face did not change, but there was a trace of fear in his eyes. He still clearly remembers one time, as Loki mentioned, when Thor, who had just learned something new, approached him again and offered to fight a duel. Heimdall knew that according to Thor's single-minded temperament, if he didn't agree, he wouldn't be able to work quietly all day today, and Thor would keep pestering himself with shamelessness. On the contrary, he accepts Thor's duel, and with his strength, he only needs one move to defeat Thor, saving time and effort. So when he saw Thor coming for a duel, Heimdall didn't refuse much and agreed directly. But just when they were about to do it, Odin suddenly appeared outside the gate of Symingberg and directly caught Heimdall's dereliction of duty and Thor's behavior of affecting official affairs. Then he caught the 2 of them and reprimanded them for more than an hour. If the real god King Odin hadn't appeared later, neither he nor Thor would have noticed that the Odin, who had been reprimanding them for more than an hour in front of them. In fact, Loki turned into it using magic. The 2 just acted as the object of Loki's prank and made a big embarrassment in front of Odin. Although later Odin did not punish him for his duel with Thor, but also punished Loki himself. But for Loki's magical ability that even his own eyes can't see through, Heimdall still left a deep impression on him and has always been very afraid of Loki's ability. Don't be so cold, Heimdall. We're all old acquaintances. Loki was unaware of all the bad deeds he had committed. In desperation, Heimdall had no choice but to say, Your Highness Loki, since you have returned to Asgard, shouldn't you first go and greet His Majesty Odin and His Highness Frigga? The God King and God Queen miss you very much. Okay, I haven't shown up for such a long time. It's time to greet them well. Then I'll talk to you next time. After finishing speaking, Loki patted Heimdall on the shoulder while showing him a smile. And seeing Loki smile, Heimdall couldn't help shivering from the spine. To him it looked like a devil's smile. For a talker like Loki, there is really no better entertainment than flirting with a stuffy pot like Heimdall. But for Heimdall, there's nothing like being pestered by a chatterbox at work. Having finished harassing Heimdall, Loki made a beeline for the palace. It has been nearly half a year since he saw his mother, Frigga, and Loki can't wait to meet her. As for that old man Odin, since the other party gave away the 3 artifacts for him, I will give him face today and be a good boy for a while. Father, Queen, I'm back. Inside the palace, Loki saluted Odin and Frigga in the Asgard way. Frigg, like every ordinary mother, got up and came to him after seeing him salute, and began to ask his health and care about his study experience on Midgard. As for Odin, he was dignified as always, and he had no intention of bringing up the matter of giving Loki the tuition fee with 3 artifacts. After confirming that Loki was safe, Frigga left the hall, leaving the space for the father and son. On the contrary, this made the atmosphere in the palace become a little awkward for a while. Everyone understands the atmosphere of communication between father and son. In the end, it was Odin who spoke first. You already know the truth? Odin said this in a tone of conviction and a little uncertainty, as if he didn't want Loki to give an affirmative answer. For Odin's endless question, Loki also felt confused, not sure what the other party was asking. So I could only guess and reply, well, Dishi has already told me that you came to him with 3 artifacts, and he agreed to give me a chance to study in Kamartaj. Thank you very much for your kind attention. My concern, father. But Loki's answer is obviously not the same thing as Odin's question. Odin shook his head. That's just my responsibility as a father, Loki. You don't have to thank me for that. What I want to ask is, do you already know the truth about your life experience? Gone. Loki looked at Odin with some surprise, and he froze in place. Leaving Loki alone in Kamartaj in Midgard, it was impossible for Odin as a father not to be concerned. From what Heimdall mentioned before, Odin and Frigga miss themselves very much. They must often find Heimdall and let the other party use his pair of Heimdall's eyes that perceive everything to observe their living conditions in Midgard. Even though they knew very well that in Kamartaj, it was impossible for Heimdall to see Loki's situation due to the veil of magic. But for a pair of parents who miss their children, sometimes even no news is good news. Until more than a month ago, Heimdall told Odin that he saw Loki go berserk because of his magic power, releasing a terrifying freezing air all over his body, which caused a natural disaster in Midgard. Chapter 19 Don't Give Up So Early, Father, Part 1. Odin didn't know Loki's identity as a time traveler, nor did he know that Loki had a system cheat. So the release of frozen air from Loki means that for Odin, the frost titan blood in his body has been awakened. But Odin couldn't confirm when the blood in Loki's body was awakened. When did Loki know this secret that he has been keeping very carefully? Father, if you are asking, when did I know that I am not an Aesir Protoss at all, but a frost titan? I have known it for a long time. After all, Loki is a frost titan. I knew it before time travel. Odin was shocked when he heard this, because in his memory, Loki never seemed to show any abnormalities in this regard since he was a child. So until today, Odin didn't know that Loki had already learned the truth, but he still thought that his secrecy work was perfect. Loki, I hope you understand that you are my child no matter what. You are Loki Odinson. In Loki's memory, this was the first time he saw his father, Odin, the king of God, showing such a flustered state in front of him. This is definitely father. No matter what happens, you and my mother will always be my closest people. You don't need to have any doubts or worries about this. What Loki said made Odin a little distracted. It feels like a blink of an eye, Loki. You have grown up, although you often like to play tricks, but today I know that you are actually the most mature of the two children. I don't know if you were interested in listening just now, old man, brag about my youthful prowess. Father, your heroic deeds when you were young. My mother told Thor and me hundreds of times as a bedtime story when we were young, and I am almost able to recite it backwards. No, what I'm going to tell you today, Frigga certainly hasn't told you. This is a story that happened at the end of the Battle of Jotunheim. After the battle, I went into a temple, where I saw a child. To those Frost Titans, the child was so small that his real father, King Lauf of the Frost Titans, abandoned him in the temple to fend for himself. But after seeing this innocent child, a despicable thought came to my mind. I actually wondered if I would bring this child back to Asgard and raise him. Then in the future, Jotunheim and Asgard may form an alliance through this child to ensure eternal peace. That child is me, right? I am a descendant of Frost Titan Lauf, the son of prophecy that you plan to bring peace to both nations. That plan is gone, Loki. You are my child, and I don't want to use you as a tool or pawn to accomplish any of my goals. The reason why I only told you these things today is because I want to protect you. Don't be hurt by this brutal truth. But you are more mature and brave than I imagined. Maybe I should have told you the truth earlier. After listening to Odin's narration, Loki didn't show any emotion of touch or anger. Instead, his eyes kept rolling around, as if some bad idea popped up in his mind. Father, well, I don't think you need to give up on your plan so quickly. For the sake of the two countries' long-term peaceful coexistence, I don't mind being a tool man or a pawn at all. Don't look at Loki's righteous words. In fact, he just remembered that he still has a system task of Prince's Revenge that has not been completed. But if he can use the power of Odin and Asgard, let him wait for the throne of Jotunheim. Not only can Loki get the task rewards issued by the system, but Asgard can also turn an enemy into a friend and gain a loyal ally. This is also a win-win thing. Regarding Loki's idea, Odin did not immediately agree or reject it, but asked suspiciously, Loki, with your character, are you really interested in the Jotunheim throne? Loki shook his head. The throne doesn't really matter, but people always have to find a goal for themselves. Since this matter is good for Asgard, Jotunheim, and even the entire Nine Realms, why not do it? And if there's anything else you want to say, just say it. Seeing Loki's hesitation, Odin urged him. And with Thor's rampant and reckless temperament, he will inherit the throne of Asgard in the future, and he doesn't know what trouble he will cause. If I become the king of Jotunheim, at least I can help him clean up some messes. Speaking of Thor, Odin on the throne feels a bit of a headache. He is very satisfied with his son, whether it is ability or strength. The only fly in the ointment may be that when she was born, she left her brain in Frigga's stomach and forgot to bring it out. Just like what Loki said, he doesn't think about the consequences of doing things at all. He only knows how to rush forward, a pure reckless man. However, it is still too early for the day when Thor actually inherits the throne. Now that the problem has been discovered, it is necessary to find a solution as soon as possible. Thinking of this, Odin said to Loki, about Thor, I need Loki to do me a favor, so we... Chapter 20, Part 1. Nidavellir, the first country in the Nine Realms to form an alliance with Asgard, is also the place where the dwarf clan forged artifacts for the gods of Asgard. It is actually a country born by the ancestors of the dwarf family, who added star rings to a dying fixed star through superb craftsmanship. Gungnir, Odin's eternal gun, and Mjolnir, Thor's Mjolnir, are all artifacts created with the energy of this dying fixed star. Although the work of the dwarf family is to create weapons for the gods and warriors of Asgard, in fact, they were originally pacifists. Forging weapons is nothing more than using their own specialties and hobbies, while gaining Asgard's protection in exchange. Loki came here today through Bifrost, his purpose, no doubt, to find a craftsman of the dwarf clan to forge a suitable weapon for himself. And as the second prince of Asgard, the person who came to greet him naturally couldn't be an unknown person. Long time no see, Loki. The last time I saw you was when you accompanied Thor to build Mjolnir. As Dwarf Wang Ai Chui spoke, he opened his arms and walked towards Loki. And facing the embrace of a dwarf who wields forging tools every day and is over 5 meters tall, Loki doesn't think he can bear such enthusiasm. So when Ai Chui was about to hug him, Loki decisively used the magic mirror. His body turned into a phantom, and the real Loki appeared behind Ai Chui. Hey, Ai Chui. Odin should have reminded you many times, you have to get rid of this bad habit of wanting to hug your friends when you see them. Ha 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 ha, sorry. I forgot that you are a necromancer, Loki. Although Ai Chui said sorry, you can guess from the expression on his face, the next time I see him absolutely still. Speaking of which, Loki, did you come to our Nidavellir today for something? You're not here to play a prank again, are you? I still remember clearly, the time you came here with Thor, when I was making Mjolnir's handle. You conjured a butterfly and flew in front of my nose, causing me to sneezed. As a result, I originally designed the long-handled Warhammer Mjolnir, and the hammer handle is only half the length left. That day, Thor chased you on Nidavill's star ring for a whole day and night, ha ha ha. Hearing Ai Chui bring this up, Loki didn't feel embarrassed at all. Anyway, it's all the system's fault, and he's just the one who took the blame. Just take it easy, Ai Chui. How can I be an adult now? How can I still play those childish pranks? Unless the system issued a task. I'm here today. Yes, I want you to build me a weapon, or more accurately a set of weapons. A set of weapons? So you have already designed this weapon? Ai Chui said with some displeasure. Definitely not yet. Weapon design must be handed over to professionals like you. It's just that I have a little idea. Oh? Tell me what you think. I wanted to make a 4-handled dagger with a ring at the end of the handle and a function like Thor's Mjolnir that can be summoned after being thrown. With these requirements, it's not easy. Give me half a day, and I can build it. Ai Chui patted his chest as he spoke, then left Loki behind, turned and walked directly into the forging room. Just as Loki was about to follow, he was stopped by 2 dwarf guards following Ai Chui. Your Highness Loki, please forgive me. But since you left last time, His Majesty Ai Chui has issued an order that you are forbidden to enter any forging room during the forging period. Loki didn't expect that the big man looked carefree, and he didn't expect to hold grudges like this. However, considering that Ai Chui is helping him build weapons, Loki has nothing to say when the other party does this. After all, ensuring the quality of the weapons produced is the most important thing at the moment. As a necromancer, the reason why Loki came to Ai Chui was to complete the side missions released by the system. After returning to Asgard from Kamar Taj, he did not relax his demands on himself and still practiced the skill of flying Thor hard every day. But no matter how much he practiced, the improvement of skill proficiency was always very slow, and later it stopped at 20% and stopped changing. Loki didn't know what was going on and thought that the system had manipulated the proficiency value. But the system's response is still the same sentence. It can't do any behavior that violates its own running rules. The reason for the slow increase in proficiency is that Loki himself has not found the correct way to practice. So depressed, Loki casually threw the dagger on his body. Seeing the dagger pierced straight into the light body with the handle still shaking, a flash of inspiration suddenly flashed in Loki's mind. He immediately walked up to the dagger and pulled it out from the wall. At the same time, a purple trask pattern with a smirk flashed on the dagger. Facing the other wall, Loki threw the dagger in his hand again. But in the next second, before the sharp blade of the dagger pierced into the wall, a hand appeared on the handle of the dagger, stopping its forward momentum. Loki looked down at the dagger he was holding in his hand, and then turned his head to look at the position where he pulled out the dagger just now. A name began to emerge in his mind unconsciously, flying to the second stage of Thor. If I'm right, reminiscent of the prompt given by the system, Loki quickly opened the system panel to check the skill proficiency of taking off Thor. Skill, Flying Thor proficiency. 100%. Sure enough, Flying Thor's skill proficiency has been raised to a perfect 100%. The branch tasks in the task module have also been updated. Chapter 21, Part 1. Subquest 2, the second stage. Congratulations to the host. Successfully derived the second stage of Flying Thor. On the basis of Flying Thor, the skills will be automatically included in the system skill library, and the host can check the skill proficiency through this system. Please increase your skill proficiency to 100% as soon as possible. The system rewards for this side mission will be issued after the second phase of the mission is completed. It wasn't until this time that Loki finally understood what the system was planning. Because of the skills he created himself as the host, the system can automatically include them in the skill library. Therefore, as long as he continues to extract wool from his host through phase side quests, the losses caused by the system sending tiers of ninja illusion before can be compensated little by little. Loki said, "How could this stingy dog system be so generous all of a sudden? Assigning side missions to himself, it's really easy to calculate." But even knowing the calculations of the system, Loki still has to complete the task honestly. Because the system uses an open plan, as long as Loki is unwilling to give up the final mission reward, he can only proceed step by step according to the mission requirements. But after figuring out the routines of the system, if you encounter similar side tasks next, you can complete them more efficiently. I just don't know if I want to complete the second phase of the side missions with the system's urgency. Should I still have to make a fuss about flying Thor's derivative skills? If so, then simply by practicing to improve the skill proficiency, Loki estimates that even with his Frost Titan lifespan, he may not be able to see the day when the proficiency is full. If not, then the task is much simpler to complete. As long as you practice repeatedly step by step, you will soon be able to brush up your skill proficiency to the full, and then get the task rewards. But before moving on to the second stage of the side mission, Loki decided to create a set of exclusive weapons for the skill of flying Thor's second stage. The so-called second stage of flying Thor is actually jumping from a static space at a fixed point to a space jump at a moving point. By leaving the magic mark on the throwing object, and then throwing the throwing object in your hand, you can perform flexible short-distance space jumps according to the trajectory of the throwing object flight. According to his own combat system, Loki decided to use the dagger as his movement marker. Daggers are easy to carry and easy to hide. It can be used as a throwing object for a long-range attack, and then teleport to the enemy unexpectedly when the enemy is dodging. It can also be used as a melee weapon to increase the lethality of the attack in close combat. However, in order to avoid the embarrassing situation of picking up the dagger by himself after being thrown out by himself, Loki specially came to Nidavellir and asked Dwarf King Ai Chui to create a set of dagger artifacts with automatic recall ability for himself. When. In the forging room, the sound of heavy and crisp metal impacts can be heard endlessly. Hearing this voice, Loki knew that Ai Chui had started to forge his own dagger. Having nothing to do, he found a place to sit down at random, and began to think about Thor's conversation between him and Odin in the palace that day. "Loki, if you want to be a king, why don't you try and become the king of Asgard?" Odin's words caused Loki to look at him with shock. To be king of Asgard? Loki is the blood of the Frost Titan. How could Odin pass the throne of Asgard to him? Loki couldn't believe it, but judging from Odin's tone, he didn't seem to be joking. "I'm not joking. Whether it's Loki, you, or Thor, they are all my Odin's children. Since there must be someone who will be my heir, why can't this person be you? At least at this stage, you want Thor to be more mature and excellent. So let's fight for this throne, and I will choose the more excellent one between you and Thor to become the next monarch of Asgard." I believe that even if Thor loses this competition in the end, he didn't gain nothing. At that time, he must have become an Asgard warrior worthy of the name of Thor. Loki knew very well what Odin's intention was in doing this. He wanted Thor to grow into a more excellent existence through competition with him for the heir to the throne. But as a time traveler who had watched Marvel movies in his previous life, Loki knew very well that Odin's method would not work at all. As the eldest prince of Asgard, Thor has always lived in an environment full of stars and moons, and he simply cannot understand what kind of abilities and qualities a qualified king should possess. In Thor's view, as long as he defeats enough enemies and wins enough wars to bring glory to Asgard, that's what a monarch should do. So in the movie, Odin deprived Thor of the artifact, sealed the power in his body, and banished him to Midgard. It wasn't until after experiencing the life of ordinary people in Midgard that Thor began to understand what humility and benevolence are, and possessed the qualities needed to become a wise king. Therefore, Loki directly rejected Odin's proposal without any hesitation. It was of no value to him to compete with Thor for the throne of Asgard. It can neither help Thor to become a better Thor, nor can he obtain systematic task rewards. But before leaving the palace, Loki left this passage to Odin. "Asgard is the leader of the entire 9 realms, such an important burden. My little arms and legs can't bear it. Let Thor bear the burden bar. Although I rejected your proposal, I will use my own way to help this incompetent brother grow up. If Thor comes to you crying and complaining, don't blame me." Chapter 22, Part 1. It is said that only when a person has experienced pain can he truly grow. The reason why Loki has such a mature mentality now is not because he is a time traveler, but because he has struggled in the society before time traveling and has experienced 996 blessings. So if you want Thor to grow into a wise king who meets the requirements in Odin's mind, you can't just rely on lip service. You must let him know that your impulsive and reckless behavior will eventually make him lose everything he cares about most. How many floors can a bag of rice resist? Feel the pain. A bag of rice is resistant to the second floor. Think pain. A bag of rice is too much, accept the pain. Let me wash a bag of rice, understand the pain. I washed so much mud in a bag of rice, people who don't understand pain. And that pile of black tiles, Wakela, people who can't understand true peace. Only after experiencing such pain can Thor understand how heavy the responsibility of being a monarch is, and how precious the value of peace is. When definitely this plan is actually implemented, it will definitely be impossible to make the whole of Asgard pay for Thor's mistakes. So at this time, it's Loki's turn to play. The technique of magic and Narakumi uses everyone's fear to make it real, and makes people feel that it is reality. I believe that after passing this illusion, Thor should at least have a longer memory. But even if it doesn't work, Loki won't be disappointed. According to his memory before traveling, it will be more than 1,000 years before Odin dies and Thor inherits the throne. During these 1,000 years, it was enough for Thor to understand the pain of growing up. Just as Loki was planning how much pain Thor would feel in the next 1,000 years, the constant knocking in the forging room finally stopped. Then the door of the forging room was opened again, and Ai Chui, who was covered in sweat, came out from inside, holding 4 dark double-edged daggers in his hands. The 4 double-edged daggers held in Ai Chui's hands, like a knife used to cut steak. When Ai Chui handed them over to Loki, the real master, they finally showed the normal file size. The moment he held the daggers in his hands, Loki felt a special connection with the 4 daggers, as if they had become an extension of his own hands. Loki tried to throw one of the daggers, the sharp blade sliced through the air, and the whole process of the dagger flying out was so quiet that no sound could be heard. Then with a thought, the dagger that he just threw flew back into his hand miraculously. Because the surrounding environment is relatively dark, the dagger's dark appearance reduces the reflection of light on it. If Loki is not focused enough and his eyesight is strong enough, he may not be able to detect the existence of the dagger. How about it? Isn't the dagger I made for you by myself not bad? Seeing the surprised expression on Loki's face, Ai Chui said proudly, "It's more than satisfied, it simply exceeded my expectations." Loki was not afraid of Ai Chui's swelling, and directly praised him. Sure enough, the expression on Ai Chui's face immediately became more proud. "Let me tell you, these 4 daggers are made of URU metal. Not only are the blades extremely sharp and will never wear out, but they can also transmit magic power, which has an amplifying effect on magic. In addition, you should have discovered that the runes on the dagger, in addition to the summoning runes you requested before, I also added concealed runes. When the dagger is swung, it will not make any sound or reflect light, very suitable for sneak attack." Loki nodded when he heard the words. Although Ai Chui's self-inflicted addition of hidden runes is indeed very suitable for him, why do his words sound so unpleasant? It's as if in Ai Chui's eyes, he is the kind of despicable villain who likes to engage in sneak attacks. "Thank you, Ai Chui. Next time I have a chance, I, a young man who doesn't talk about martial arts, will definitely stab you in the back with the dagger you made." Loki didn't spare anyone, and didn't give Ai Chui a chance to fight back after speaking. He launched Thor directly and flew back to his room in Asgard. Now that the weapon in hand has been obtained, it is naturally time to continue to complete the second phase of the side mission. Soon, daggers were flying everywhere in the room, and at the same time as the daggers, Loki was constantly flashing. Loki appeared in every corner of the room while flying the second stage of Thor, and at the same time opened the system interface with 2 purposes to check the skill proficiency of flying the second stage of Thor. Skill: Fly Thor second stage, proficiency, 18%. However, after half a day of practice, the skill proficiency has been raised to 18%, which should be a normal performance for a genius like Loki. Since there is no problem with the improvement of proficiency, it means that the system did not play tricks on the calculation of proficiency this time, and secretly added some hidden rules. It seems that the system still knows that the leaks should not be cut too thoroughly, and the leaks must be cut off constantly if there is room. After confirming that there is no routine for the side missions in the second stage, Loki began to devote all his energy to the practice of flying Thor's second stage. After 2 days of sleepless nights and forgetting to eat and sleep to improve the proficiency of liver skills, the proficiency of Fei Thor's second stage is finally full. Skill: Fly Thor's second stage, proficiency, 100%. A ding. Subquest 2 is detected. The second stage has been completed, and the settlement of Subtask 2 is started. The mission is settled. Congratulations to the host for completing the side mission 2, and the rewards for this mission are now issued. Reward Skills. Chapter 23, Part 1. Ding. Subquest 2 is detected. The second stage has been completed, and the settlement of Subtask 2 is started. The mission is settled. Congratulations to the host for completing the side mission 2, and the rewards for this mission are now issued. Bonus Skill: Moko Potmo. When Loki heard that the reward given by the system turned out to be Mok Potmo, he was really stunned. His jaw almost fell to the floor. Loki is not aimed at anyone, but compared with Moko Botama, the task rewards given by the system before can be said to be all fun. Skill: Moko Potmo, proficiency, 30%, skill introduction. From Taigu. Mephisto appearance e demon essence user, shaking s queen estus. It is the ultimate skill that can only be used once a day. Everything will freeze in front of me. When the skill is activated, it can create a low temperature of absolute zero, completely stagnating the movement of microscopic particles, thus temporarily freezing time and space. After reading the skill introduction given by the system, and confirming that the Moko Botmo given by the system is the skill in his memory, Loki was so excited that he almost wanted to poke his temple with his index finger. It's so high that I can't do it. Loki can even imagine that when he fights against the enemy in the future, he will shout, "Smash Faruto!" in front of the enemy, then a flying Thor second stage flashed in front of the enemy and attacked the enemy's vitals with a knife while the opponent's time was stagnant. When the enemy's time reappeared and began to flow, he had already stood aside coolly, while the other party could only fall into eternal darkness with endless doubts in the dying struggle. Although there is a limit that it can only be used once a day, if it is really difficult to fight, Loki can still use Thor to run away. It can be said that Loki is invincible in this wave. By the way, the system. Why did the skills rewarded this time have a 30% proficiency from the very beginning? Because of the host's own Frost Titan bloodline and the previously obtained freezing power, the difficulty of using Mach Batmo has been reduced. Therefore, when calculating skill proficiency, this system takes these factors into account. Hia. Your system is really getting more and more sensible. Since you are such a kind-hearted host like me, it must not let you suffer. What do you think this is? As he spoke, magic power began to emerge from Loki's hands. The magic power in Loki's hands continuously flows in different directions and is compressed, finally forming a magic ball with high rotational density. At this time, the system's notification tone also sounded. A ding! Congratulations to the host. Self-created magic skill, Helix Pill. Skills will be automatically included in the system skill library, and the host can check the skill proficiency through this system. Loki's move can be regarded as reciprocating. Since the rewards issued by the system are so generous, then Loki naturally doesn't mind letting the system take advantage of him. He wanted to try the Spiral Pill skill when he first created Flying Thor. However, because I was busy with the research on Tesseract at that time, and the branch tasks just released by the system had not been completed yet, this matter was temporarily put on hold. Today is the first time that Loki tries to recreate the moves of Helix Wand in the form of magic power according to the anime content in his memory. Thanks to his extremely high ability and powerful magic control ability, he used this move very easily. And the system's response is also very fast. Since the host Loki has already delivered the benefits to the door, there is no reason not to accept it. A ding! It is detected that the host's self-created skills are included in this system. In order to encourage the host to make persistent efforts, a phase side task is now released. Submission 3, Level 1. Please increase your skill proficiency to 100% as soon as possible, and the second phase of the task will be released after the completion of the Level 1 task. PS develop new derivative skills, which can make the task faster. What else can Loki say about the system's face on the stick? Seeing that the system rewarded Moko Botmo for himself, Loki definitely chose to accept the mission. Who knows if there will be any attractive rewards for this side mission. However, as the second prince of Asgard and an adult necromancer, it is not as easy for Loki to spend all day training in the training ground. Since he has enjoyed the glory and privileges brought by being a royal family, he naturally needs to take on the responsibilities of being a royal family. So from time to time, Loki needs to be a representative of Asgard, follow Odin or Frigga, and visit other countries for exchanges. Sometimes, if Asgard's allies or vassals invade or rebel, Loki also needs to follow Asgard's army to go out to support. Loki's life is constantly switching between performing Asgard's tasks or completing system tasks, alternating and repeating. However, this is not a bad thing for Loki. After all, the skills obtained from the system still need to be used in actual combat before they can be used flexibly. And Loki has gradually gained a brand new title other than the God of Lies and Tricks because of his powerful strength displayed in various wars in the 9 realms. In the army, some people called him the God of Frost because of his powerful freezing power. It is called Black Flash because of its elusive movement on the battlefield. For a time, almost all the people of Asgard from top to bottom felt that the naughty boy who only knew how to play pranks had grown into a trustworthy and reliable hero. In this regard, Thor's heart can be said to be full of resentment, but not because Loki's growing popularity threatened his claim to the throne of Asgard. It's because only Thor knows that Loki is not what the warriors and the populace seem to be. Chapter 24, Part 1. This guy Loki is obviously still as bad as he was when he was a child. No, he has gotten worse now, Thor said angrily alone in the room. Others may not know it, but Thor, the victim, knows Loki's true face very well. To others, Loki is Asgard's hero, but to Thor, Loki is still the old god of mischief. Loki doesn't know how, no matter where he hides, he can always come behind him in an instant and unexpectedly. If Loki simply wanted to scare him in this way, that's fine. but every time, Loki would leave a painful memory of inhumanity in Thor's heart. The only thing Thor can be sure of is that Loki has mastered a magic that can make people fall into the illusion of incomparable reality. In the real world that Loki made up for him, Thor experienced that because of his own recklessness, it triggered another war between Jotunheim and Asgard. Odin was furious at this, stripped him of all that he was Thor, and exiled him to Midgard. In the end, Odin died in the battle with Jotunheim, and Loki became the successor to the throne of Asgard. And he, in order to appease Jotunheim's wrath, was left forever in Midgard, and died in a mortal manner. This is already a very good ending. What is more tragic is that because of his impulsiveness, his mother Frigga was killed by the Dark Elves. Because of his arrogance, he attracted Surti, which led to the destruction of Ragnarok and Asgard. Yamjing's head caused half of the entire universe to be wiped out with a snap of fingers. Thor doesn't know exactly where Loki's imagination is coming from, but he knows it's going to drive him crazy. Before, he had put down his dignity and complained to Odin and Frigga, but the result was at most a few words of comfort, and finally nothing happened. How did Thor know that Loki and Odin had already passed the gas in private? Especially with Loki's plan working so well, Thor's reckless rampage on the battlefield has been drastically reduced. Odin can't wait to let Loki continue to increase his strength. How could he stop because Thor came to him to complain? Moreover, Loki is extremely measured in every attack, and when he sees Thor's mood is too low, he temporarily let him recover for a few days. When Thor's emotions are almost adjusted, he will continue to cast illusions on him. So even their mother Frigga, although she couldn't bear it after knowing this, still acquiesced to Loki's actions for the sake of Thor's future. A family of 4, except him, are all on Loki's side. In this case, it's no wonder that Thor's complaint can be useful. But Thor is not the only one who is depressed. Loki wasn't in a good mood these days, because he hadn't received a new mission released by the system for a long time, since he completed the side mission 3 released by the system a few years ago. According to the system's explanation, the side missions were originally a patch made by the system when the main missions were blocked due to insufficient host strength. The purpose is to allow the host to continue to complete the main task after improving his strength through the rewards of the side task. Therefore, the side quests of the system cannot be issued indefinitely. When the system determines that the strength of the host is enough to complete the main quest, no more side quest will be issued. Although with Loki's current strength, it is true that abilities single-handedly overturned the entire Jotunheim. But on the one hand, the peace agreement signed between Jotunheim and Asgard has not yet expired, and on the other hand, the Frost Titan seems to have lost its ambition after losing the Casket of Ancient Winters, and has not made any small moves. This makes Loki just want to complete the main task of Prince's Revenge, and he can't find an excuse. If Loki came to the door to declare war despite being unknown, wouldn't that be slapping Odin and the entire Asgard in the face? From other countries in the 9 realms, where else would anyone dare to trust Asgard? There is no way. Loki can't ignore the interests of the whole of Asgard in order to complete the task for himself. Since there are no new tasks and no new skill rewards, Loki will focus on improving his strength, focusing on improving the proficiency of skills and the cooperation between various skills. For example, the Mokobotmo I got before and the quest rewards I got from Side Quest 3, because I was too busy dealing with Asgard's affairs, and with the power of these 2 skills, there was almost no chance to use them on the battlefield. So until now, the proficiency of these 2 skills has not increased to 100%. In addition, with the increase of age, Loki can feel that his source of magic power and physical fitness are still slowly improving. Although the speed of this improvement is very slow, Loki's strength is indeed increasing. At this rate, Loki estimates that by the time he is around 1,000 years old, his physical fitness will be at its peak. At that time, maybe you can try to open the perfect version of the fairy mode again. The skills that Loki now masters include the magic learned in Asgard, the task rewards issued by the system, and various skills created by himself. There are too many skills, and the magic power consumed to use them at the same time is also huge. In particular, Moko Botmo's big move of freezing time and space can clear 90% of Loki's blue bar in one shot. If the freezing time needs to be extended, there will be no drop of magic power left. Loki is now in urgent need of a skill that can improve his magic life, so that he can fully display his strength. Wait a minute. Loki suddenly remembered something. If you want to improve your magic life, you can not only increase your upper limit, but also use external force. How could I forget that thing? With it, wouldn't my current problem be easily solved? Chapter 25, Part 1. Infinite gems. Gems not only possess incomparable magical power, but also contain huge amounts of energy. Loki's idea is very simple. Since his own magic power cannot be increased in a short period of time, wouldn't it be better to find a cheat and directly borrow external energy? And what can satisfy Loki's huge consumption of mana is naturally infinite gems. Among the 6 infinite gems, Loki's first choice is the power gem. Because according to the memory before time travel, Loki basically knows the location of the 6 infinite gems. Needless to say, Time Gem is now serving as the core of Eye of Agamotto's magic weapon and is protected by the Supreme Mage in Kamartaj. Space Gem is Tesseract, at the moment is also in Midgard, and it is hidden there by Odin, and Loki can't act rashly either. Reality Gem is the TIE particles used by the Dark Elves thousands of years ago when they tried to rule the Nine Realms. But later the Dark Elves were defeated by Bor, the god king of Asgard at that time, that is, Odin's father Bor. TIE particles were also sealed in a mysterious place by King Bor, and they have never been seen since. My Gem doesn't know if it has fallen into Thanos' hands at this time. If Thanos has already got it, Loki doesn't know where Thanos is now. If not, Loki doesn't know where it is. Soul Gem is very strange. It is located on a dead planet called Vommer Star. It needs to sacrifice the life of the person you love most in exchange for the appearance of Soul Gem. Even at this point in time, is there a paternity test expert waiting for someone who is destined to visit? As for the final Power Stone, Loki is almost certain that it is now located on a planet called Morak. The original civilization on this planet used its advanced technology to make the Power Gem into an artifact called the Universe Spirit Ball. However, due to the over-reliance on and excessive demand for the power of the Power Gem, the result was the backlash of the Power Gem, and the civilization of the entire planet was destroyed. After such an analysis and comparison, among the 6 infinite gems, the only one that Loki can completely determine the location of and can take away without any scruples is the Power Gem. Before Loki can find the Power Stone, though, he has one more thing to do. That is, ask Odin for leave. To put it bluntly, his current status is, to put it mildly, the second prince of Asgard, and to put it bluntly, he is an advanced worker. It's just that he doesn't need 996 to work as a migrant worker, and he also holds shares in the family business of Asgard, which can be distributed in the future. Since he was about to leave his post and go out to do errands, he naturally had to ask his immediate superior for leave first, and he could leave only after getting approval. So you came to me to ask for leave, because the universe is so big. You want to see it? On the throne, Odin looked down at Loki below. His serious expression filled his whole body with a sense of oppression. That's right. Loki couldn't say that he was going to find infinite gems. Odin managed to find the place before and hid the Tesseract in Midgard. To let him know that Loki is going to bring another one back on his own initiative, Odin will definitely pull out his eternal gunner on the spot and pump Loki's glutes hard. After being confirmed by Loki, Odin did not respond for a long time, but stared at Loki with his only remaining eye. Under Odin's gaze, Loki only felt that he was getting more and more guilty, and cold sweat was constantly breaking out on his forehead due to nervousness. Just when he was about to give up asking for leave and sneak out some time, Odin let out a long sigh, and then said helplessly, "Go, take a good look at this universe, and take a good rest by the way. Also, pay attention to safety and come back early." After speaking, Odin waved at Loki and drove him out of the palace. Loki was still a little confused, wondering why Odin suddenly agreed. But as long as he can get a leave of absence, at least he won't have to leave the country illegally. The fake Loki was invited, and he left the palace in a happy mood. But Odin in the palace frowned tightly, looking preoccupied. The reason why Odin is so worried is not because Asgard has encountered any insurmountable difficulties. On the contrary, in the past few years, because of the outstanding performance of Loki and Thor, Asgard has entered the most prosperous era since his reign. So apart from his status as king of Asgard, what remains is his status as a husband and father in the family. Who else could make Odin so distressed but his 2 children Loki and Thor? The trouble with Thor is that Thor grows too slowly. This kind of slowness is not just the slow growth of strength, but the slow maturity of mind. But for Loki's annoyance, it was because Loki grew up too fast. Whether in strength or in mind, Loki is far stronger than Thor, who is the big brother. So when Loki proposed to go to the outer universe to have a look, Odin's feelings as a father were very complicated. On the one hand, he is proud of Loki's maturity and independence, but on the other hand, he is worried whether it is too early for him to leave his protection now, and whether he will encounter dangers that he cannot handle in the outside world. What worries Odin even more is whether Loki's personality and thinking will change due to some encounters outside. If such a thing really happened, and there was no one who could show him the way, then would Loki become like the proudest daughter he had ever been, becoming? But after a long time of thinking, Odin finally decided to let Loki go through his own life according to his own ideas. No matter how many entanglements there are in his heart, Odin knows that he should not stop a child's courage and determination to go out for his own selfishness. It's really not an easy thing to be a good father. Odin shook his head, throwing out all the thoughts in his mind, then stood up from the throne, ready to return to the bedroom to rest. At this time, Odin seemed to suddenly remember something, with a wry smile on his face. If Frigga knew that Loki was going to leave Asgard again, it would probably be uncomfortable for a while. I'd better go back to the study to rest recently,